Hey, wide awake family. If you see this, it's your sign to smash that like button. Yes, you listening right now. That way YouTube shows you more amazing stories like this one. We love you all. Now enjoy the stories.
I know this sounds crazy, but the second I stepped into her flat, I knew something was off. I'm not saying I'm some super smart guy who notices everything, but there was this weird heaviness inside the place, like the air didn't want me there. My phone battery was low, and my mates kept messaging me to drop them my location, but I ignored it because I didn't want to look paranoid on a first date. The night was supposed to be simple. I met her on a dating app. She looked cute, she loved horror movies, and she suggested a movie night at her place. I thought that was a green light that things would go well. And trust me, if you saw her profile, you'd understand why I said yes so fast. Her flat was on the third floor of this old building with long hallways that smelled like burnt toast and damp clothes. She opened the door before I even knocked, which already freaked me out a little. It was like she was waiting right behind the door, listening for my steps. She smiled way too wide, but I brushed it off because nerves exist and I didn't want to judge her too early. She hugged me straight away, kind of too tight for someone I've only known for 2 weeks online. I just told myself she was friendly. The lights inside her flat were dim, and the place looked weirdly tidy. Like not normal tidy, but as if nobody actually lived there. There weren't any shoes near the door, no random things lying around like people usually have. Just clean surfaces, no dust, everything lined up perfectly. She told me to make myself comfortable and went to the kitchen to get drinks. That's when I noticed the living room walls. Everywhere I looked, there were framed photos of her standing with different guys. Some of the frames were crooked like they'd been touched recently, and every single guy's face was scraped out with something sharp. Not just crossed out, like completely carved away until it was just a torn mess where the face should have been. I thought maybe it was an edgy art thing or those were exes she hated, but there were so many. At least 10 frames just in that room. And she was smiling in every single one like nothing was wrong. I wanted to look away, but it was impossible not to stare at how messed up the photos looked. While I was pretending to check my phone, my eyes kept drifting back to them. Then I saw a small frame on a shelf next to the TV. Same as the others, her smiling with a guy. But something about it felt familiar. My chest got tight and my ears started ringing a little. I stepped closer just to be sure. And yeah, it was me. The exact photo from my profile, same hoodie, same haircut. But my face was scratched out too. Completely gone from the picture. I froze. I didn't even know what to do. My first thought was that she printed that picture from my dating profile and did that before even meeting me in person. I didn't know if I should run or pretend I didn't see anything. My heart was punching my ribs like it was trying to get out. She came back and smiling, holding 2 glasses like nothing weird was happening. I tried to keep my breathing normal, but it obviously wasn't working because she tilted her head and asked if I was all right. I said yeah, but my voice cracked slightly, which made it more obvious I wasn't okay. She sat down next to me on the couch, way too close. Like her leg was touching mine, and she didn't blink for a while after she sat down. She put on a horror movie, but I couldn't even focus on the screen. All I kept thinking about was that photo with my face scratched out. I tried to casually ask about the pictures. She ignored the question at first. Then she looked at me slowly, with her eyes wide like she was surprised I noticed anything. She said they were memories, that the guys in the pictures weren't the same anymore. She talked like she was disappointed in them. Then she smiled again and said this time it would be different. I laughed nervously because what do you even do in that moment? I kept planning how to leave without making her angry. I didn't know what she was capable of. Then we kept playing, but I couldn't sit still. Every second sitting next to her felt like waiting for something bad to happen. Then she excused herself to go to the bathroom. The moment she left the room, I stood up and checked the front door. The lock was one of those metal ones that slides in place, and it looked like it needed a key to unlock from the inside. The key wasn't there. Not in the lock, not on any of the surfaces. My stomach dropped. It was like she hid it on purpose. I started searching quickly but quietly for my shoes near the entrance. Gone. She took them or moved them somewhere. I looked toward the hallway and listened for the bathroom door. Still closed. I tried not to panic, but my heart was going too fast to stay chill now. I turned back toward the living room and noticed something I somehow missed before. There was a drawer open slightly under the shelf with the photos. Inside, I saw more pictures, stacks of them. Guys I didn't know, all scratched out. Some looked like the paper was torn from someone stabbing it over and over. I heard the bathroom door unlock. I jumped back to the couch so fast I nearly tripped. She walked out drying her hands on her shirt. Her eyes immediately scanned the room like she was checking if I had touched anything. She smiled again, but now it was different. Bigger, almost like she knew I saw everything. She sat down again, placing her hand on my knee. She asked if I wanted to stay over after the movie because she didn't want the night to end yet. My mouth was so dry I could barely talk. I told her I forgot something important at home and needed to leave soon. She stared at me, the smile slowly fading. She said I wasn't going anywhere. The way she said it wasn't loud, but it hit me like a punch. I stood up like I was stretching, acting all normal, then said I just needed the bathroom. The second I closed the door behind me, I locked it and instantly opened the small window above the toilet. The drop wasn't too deep, maybe one floor down onto some gross bush, but I didn't care. I climbed up and squeezed through, scraping my arms, but I didn't stop. When I landed, I got up and ran with no shoes on the cold ground. I didn't look back until I reached the main road. When I finally turned around, I saw her leaning out of her window, watching me run. She didn't shout or anything. She just stood there staring, like she was already planning something else. I blocked her everywhere. Changed my number. Deleted the app. But sometimes I swear I see someone staring at me in public. Just a glimpse. Then they disappear. Maybe it's nothing. Or maybe she's still out there, keeping an eye on me like she's waiting for the right time to finish scratching me out for real. I honestly thought this date would be the one that finally went right. I'm tired of weird guys who either spend the whole night talking about their gym routines or act like they're interviewing me for a job. So when I matched with this guy who seemed normal, funny, and actually interested in knowing me, I felt like I hit the jackpot for once. We messaged for a while, sent some selfies, talked about our favorite food spots, and he asked if I wanted to go out for dinner. Nothing crazy, nothing strange, just dinner. It sounded perfect. The restaurant he picked was nice too. Not too fancy, but not one of those places where they microwave everything either. It had warm lighting, booths with soft seats, and music that wasn't loud enough to make you shout just to order fries. I got there 5 minutes early and waited by the door. He arrived right on time, and when he walked in, he looked exactly like his pictures. Same hairstyle, same jacket, same smile. I was honestly relieved because I was worried he would be a completely different person in real life. He hugged me hello and we went to our table. Straight away, I noticed something off though. When we sat down, instead of looking at me, he kept glancing behind me. Not like a quick look, but long stares like there was something he needed to keep checking. I thought maybe he saw someone he knew or was shy or something, so I tried to ignore it at first. We ordered food, he asked me some questions, but even when I answered, his eyes kept drifting over my shoulder. The weird part was that his face would change when he looked behind me. Sometimes he would look confused, then suddenly angry, then scared. It was like he was having an argument with someone silently, someone right behind me. I kept turning around to see what he was staring at, but there was just a brick wall with framed pictures and a plant. Nothing else. The waiter brought our drinks and I tried to keep the conversation going. I told him a random story from college to see if he would laugh, but he barely reacted. He was smiling weirdly at the wall, like he could see someone there that I couldn't. Then out of nowhere he whispered something to himself and nodded slowly like he agreed with whatever was said back to him. That's when I finally asked him what he kept looking at. He snapped his eyes to me like he forgot I was even there. He said nothing at first, then he leaned forward a bit. He told me his friend was sitting behind me and kept telling him stuff about me. I looked again and still saw no one. I asked where his friend was and he pointed directly at the empty space behind my chair, acting completely serious. I laughed because I thought it was a joke. It wasn't. He didn't laugh with me. He stared at me with this dead straight expression and told me his friend doesn't like me. His voice got lower when he said it, like he didn't want anyone else to hear. I tried to stay calm, but my hands were sweating. I asked why his friend didn't like me. He stared past me again, like he was listening to someone talk. Then he told me that his friend said I shouldn't leave the restaurant alive. My whole body went cold. I didn't know whether to scream or act like everything was okay. Part of me thought he was messing with me for attention, but he didn't look like someone who jokes about stuff like that. His breathing changed, and he started tapping the table really fast with his fingers. He told me his friend said I looked like someone from before. Someone who left him. Someone he didn't forgive. I tried to change the subject. asking about his job just to distract him, but he ignored me completely. He just kept staring behind me, nodding and muttering under his breath. I couldn't turn around anymore because I didn't want to see nothing again and look stupid. And what if he really believed someone was there? What if he snapped? He suddenly smiled again, but it wasn't a normal smile. His eyes looked too wide, like he was excited. He told me his friend was giving him permission to decide what happens next. He asked me what I think he should do. I couldn't even speak. I just grabbed my water, drank some pretending to be chill, and slowly slid my phone out under the table to text my friend. But he saw my hand moving and grabbed my wrist with so much force my phone nearly dropped. He told me not to try anything because his friend didn't like when people planned escape routes. He looked so serious I didn't even blink. I nodded, and he let go, but he didn't look away from behind me. I realized if I wanted to leave alive, I had to play along and not piss off the invisible friend. The food came, and he didn't touch his plate. He just picked up the knife and spun it around like he was thinking about something crazy. His eyes flicked between me and the empty seat behind me. I kept staring at my plate because if I looked up, I didn't know what he would do. He mumbled about making it quick or maybe making it slow to set an example. Each second felt like an hour. I said I needed the bathroom. He stared behind me again, like checking if that was allowed. After a long pause, he smiled and said sure, but his voice sounded shaky like he wasn't the one deciding that. I stood up casually, even though my legs were shaking so much I thought I was going to fall. I walked to the bathroom, closed the door, and locked it. I looked at myself in the mirror. I was pale and shaking. I tried calling for help, but there was no signal inside there. The window was small, but I opened it and squeezed through, ripping my jacket on a nail sticking out. I dropped onto the ground behind the building and ran. I didn't even know where I was running to. I just ran until I reached a street with cars and lights. I never looked back. When I finally stopped, I cried like crazy because everything hit me all at once. I blocked him instantly and deleted the app that same night. But I keep thinking about what he said. Who was he talking to? Was he actually insane, or was there really something behind me the whole time? And sometimes when I'm sitting somewhere and I feel like someone is staring behind me, I don't look anymore. I'm scared there might actually be someone there this time. So, I never thought bowling would become the scariest place I've ever been in my life. Like seriously, it's bowling. Shoes that smell disgusting, loud music, kids running around dropping chips everywhere. You don't expect anything dark or creepy to go down there. But now I can't even drive past a bowling alley without getting this tight feeling in my chest. It started like a normal date. We met online, she looked cool, her selfies were cute, and she had this funny vibe and messages that made me want to actually meet her in person. She suggested we go bowling for our first date since she said she was competitive but cute about it. I figured that sounded fun and not awkward like a dinner where you have to stare at each other the whole time. When I got to the place, I saw her waiting outside, leaning on the wall. She waved the second she saw me, and I felt good about it. She gave me a hug that lasted a little longer than normal. I didn't mind, just thought she was excited to meet me. We walked inside the entrance together, and she kept talking about how she was going to beat me and how I shouldn't cry when she gets all strikes. Then everything changed in about 3 seconds. Right when we stepped in, there was this board near the entrance full of posters. Events, lost pets, people selling furniture, the usual random stuff. But one caught my eye. It was one of those missing person posters. And the picture on it. It looked exactly like me. Same haircut, same jawline, same stupid hoodie I wear like every day. At first I thought it was just someone who looked extremely similar, but the more I stared, the more my stomach twisted. It literally could have been my twin if I didn't know I didn't have one. I stopped walking and just stared at it, trying to read more details. It said the guy went missing 2 weeks ago, last seen around town. Same height as me too. I didn't know what to think. I pointed at it, and before I could even finish asking her if she saw it too, she moved so fast it scared me. She grabbed the poster off the board, crumpling it a bit, and shoved it deep inside her bag like she was hiding drugs or something. I just froze. She stood there and smiled like nothing happened. She changed the subject instantly and said we should hurry before all the good things got taken. But I couldn't stop staring at her bag. She noticed I wasn't moving and told me I looked tense. She joked that maybe I was nervous about losing, but I didn't laugh. I asked her why she did that so quickly, and she just said it's stupid to scare people with posters like that on date nights. Then she took my arm and pulled me toward the counter to rent shoes. The whole time my brain was racing. Why did she move so fast? Why did she act like it was no big deal? And why would she take it instead of ignoring it? It felt so wrong. We started bowling. She was weirdly excited, like jumping around every time she knocked a pin over. But her energy felt forced, like she was trying too hard to keep my attention away from the entrance. And every time I looked toward the front door, she would slide in front of me or talk loud so I'd look back at her. I kept thinking about the missing guy. What if he wasn't just some random dude? What if she knew him? What if he was on a date with her too? I tried to enjoy the game, but she kept staring at me during my turns. Not in a cute way. More like she was studying me, memorizing every part of me. She asked weird questions too, like if I lived alone, if I told anyone where I was today, if my family checks in on me daily. She asked how long it would take before someone noticed if I disappeared. She said it so casually, like she wasn't literally asking how easy it would be for me to go missing. Every question made my skin crawl more. I tried laughing them off, but inside I wanted to run. The loud music, the balls crashing into pins, the lights flickering above, everything became too much. I started planning an excuse to leave. Then she got a strike and jumped into a hug with me so fast I stumbled. When she pulled away, she brushed her hand against my throat like she was wiping something off me. She smiled and said I looked just like in the photo. I swear my heart stopped. I pretended I didn't hear her and told her I needed the toilet. I walked calmly until I made it around the corner, then I sprinted. The bathroom was empty. I went into a stall and pulled out my phone shaking. I texted my best friend my location and told him to call me. Right when I hit send, I heard footsteps. They were slow. They stopped right outside my stall. I looked down and saw her shoes. She didn't say anything, just stood there. I held my breath. My phone buzzed loudly, and she knocked once on the stall door. I didn't answer. After a few seconds, it felt like an hour, she walked away. I waited until I heard the entrance door open and close. I counted to 20 before I came out and checked. She was gone, but her bag was still on the chair by the lane, and the missing poster corner was sticking out. I told the staff someone spilled a drink on me and I needed to go home. They didn't question it. I rushed out, got in my car, locked the doors instantly, and just sat there breathing like I'd run a marathon. I watched the entrance. She never came back out. I don't know what she planned. I don't know why she hid that poster. And I never want to know if that missing guy was the last person she went bowling with. I blocked her, deleted the app, but I still think about that poster. What if that guy was me next? What if she already had the new one printed?
Hey guys, really sorry to interrupt. If you're still listening, then you're enjoying the story so far. And if you are enjoying, then please hit that like button. That's all I ask of you. Thanks so much. Now back to the stories.
Honestly, I shouldn't have trusted my friends when they told me not to meet guys who choose weird places for first dates. I don't know why I always ignore the simplest red flags. Maybe I thought walking by a lake sounded kind of cute and peaceful. It was different from the typical coffee or restaurant thing, and he seemed normal enough when we were messaging. He talked about nature a lot and said he liked sunsets and fresh air instead of sitting indoors. I thought that was refreshing. I thought it meant he was kind of soft, but that was before I found out what he really meant about liking lakes. He picked me up after I finished work. He was waiting outside my place in a car that looked like it hadn't been washed in months, with leaves stuck under the wipers and dirt around the wheels like he drove through a forest to get here. He apologized for the mess inside his car, and I laughed and said it was fine. He kept staring at me like he was trying to picture something. He barely blinked. I should have noticed that. We drove to this lake that was a bit outside town. It was already getting dark, the sky all purple and fading into night. There were barely any people around, just an old couple leaving with their dog and a kid riding a bike far down the path. The air felt colder than I expected. I wrapped my jacket tighter and he offered his, but I said no. I started thinking maybe this was too empty, too quiet. We got out and walked along the trail that led around the water. He kept his hands in his pockets and didn't say much at first, just smiled every time I looked at him. The water was still, with small waves crashing softly against the rocks. You could hear insects, birds going home for the night, trees moving a little. It should have been relaxing, but my stomach already had this weird twist, like something wasn't right. We found a spot by the edge of the lake where the ground dipped slightly, and he stopped. He said it was his favorite spot. It had the best view of the water. I nodded and stepped closer to look. The lake was darker now, and I couldn't see much of what was under the surface. He stood right behind me. I could feel how close he was because I could hear his breathing. Slow and deep. I tried to talk to make things less awkward. I asked how often he comes here. He waited a few seconds before answering. Then he said something that didn't match his calm voice at all. He said there's already a body down there. I laughed for a second because I thought he was joking, but he didn't laugh. He didn't even smirk. He looked straight at the lake like he was remembering something. He told me he comes here a lot to check if the body ever floats back up. He said it hasn't yet. It stays down there in the deep part where no one goes. And then he asked me if I wanted to see it. I felt like my whole body stopped working for a moment. I turned and asked what he meant, and he pointed to his car like he had something in there that would help us look. He walked a few steps back toward the trail and motioned for me to follow. His voice was too casual, like he was asking if I wanted a drink or something normal like that. I didn't move. I tried to think logically. Maybe he was messing with me, trying to scare me, playing some dark humor thing. But his face said he was dead serious. His eyes didn't have any joke in them. They were too focused, too excited. He walked all the way back to his car and opened the trunk. I saw him taking stuff out. A flashlight, some kind of rope, a metal pole. Everything looked like he planned something before coming here. He kept glancing back at me to see if I was still there. I forced myself to wave like everything was fine because I didn't want him to know I was terrified. He carried the stuff back and placed everything on the ground next to the rocks. Then he crouched down and poked at the water with a pole. He said the body was tied to something heavy so it wouldn't drift. He said he learned how to make sure it never floats up again. My stomach dropped so fast I felt sick. I told him I needed a picture of the lake for my friend because she loves this view. He smiled like that made perfect sense. He said, sure, go ahead. So I took my phone out. My hands were shaking, but I tried to hide it. I opened the camera like I was about to take a photo, but instead I went to messages and typed, "Call police, come now." I dropped my location and sent it without giving myself time to think. He stood up suddenly like something snapped in his head. He looked around like he heard someone. Then he looked at me again with this strange expression. He asked if I tried to go anywhere or message anyone. I told him no and tried to laugh it off. He stared into my eyes for way too long like he was trying to read my brain. Then he took a step toward me. I backed up. He kept stepping closer. I kept stepping back until my foot hit a rock and the water splashed. I could feel panic trying to explode inside me. He said that people normally don't find this spot and that he liked sharing it with someone who might stay. He said he hoped I liked the lake because maybe I would get used to it. I told him I was cold and needed to go back to the car. He tilted his head and said we were fine here. He said the water would be quick. He lifted the rope slowly like he was imagining using it. I don't know where I got the guts, but I grabbed the flashlight near his feet and smacked him in the leg with it as hard as I could. He yelled and stumbled sideways. I sprinted. I ran so fast up that trail that my lungs felt like they would explode. I didn't look back. I heard him shouting my name, but his voice got quieter and quieter the farther I got. I kept running until I reached the parking area where some people were loading their car. I yelled that someone was after me and they rushed over. One of them called the police while I hid behind them shaking. They searched the lake area for him but found nothing. His car was gone. All that stuff he brought was gone. The rope, the pole, everything. Like he cleaned it all fast and vanished. The police told me they'll check around, ask questions, but I could tell they weren't hopeful. Lakes hide too much darkness. Now every time I see a lake, I wonder how many bodies are down there and how close I came to being one of them. I'm not scared of heights usually. I've been on airplanes, roller coasters, all that. But rooftops are different. On a roller coaster, at least there's a bar holding you in. When you're standing at the top of a building and there's just some low rail and a crazy drop beneath it, you start thinking about how fast everything could go wrong. I never thought that would matter on a date, though. I thought rooftop bars were romantic. City lights, fresh air, drinks, good vibes. I thought I finally picked something impressive that wouldn't embarrass me. She chose the place. She sent me the address and said she booked the table with the best view. I didn't think anything weird about it. When I read her messages, she seemed confident and cool. A little intense maybe, but I told myself confidence is attractive. Sometimes intensity is just passion, right? Yeah, I was stupid. When I got there, she was already waiting by the entrance upstairs. She wore all black, like she was going to a fancy party or maybe a funeral. She smiled when she saw me, but her smile wasn't a cute one. It was more like she was proud of something that hadn't even happened yet. She hugged me quickly and then grabbed my wrist like she was leading a lost kid. We walked to the very edge of the rooftop where there were just 2 chairs set up facing the skyline. The city looked insane from up there. Cars looked like tiny moving dots, and the breeze was strong enough to push her clothes around. She pointed at the chair that was closer to the ledge and told me to sit there. I didn't want to look scared, so I laughed and sat like it was nothing. But my heart already started doing that panic drum thing against my ribs. She didn't sit opposite me like normal dates. She sat next to me on the inside seat, blocking me from moving away from the edge. She crossed her legs and stared at me longer than anyone should stare without explaining why. Then she said it. Straight. No joking tone. People usually fall if they disappoint me. I tried to play it off. I said that was a dark joke. But she didn't laugh. She just kept staring at me, waiting to see what I did with that information. I made some awkward comment about the view and how high up we were. She looked past me, over my shoulder, like she was watching the drop and imagining something. Her drink came and she didn't even sip it first. She pushed the glass into my hand and told me I should try it. I didn't want to drink from something she handed me that fast, especially after that fallen comment, so I just pretended to sip. She didn't push it further, just smiled like she saw right through me. The wind picked up a bit and my chair tilted slightly backward. Not enough to fall, but enough to make me grip the arms of the chair. She reached out and held my wrist again, but way harder than before. Like she was making sure I didn't go back too far, or maybe making sure if I fell, it would be because she let me. Her nails dove into my skin and I tried to gently pull away. She didn't let go. She moved her face closer to mine and whispered that she liked being in control, that the wind tests people, that some people fail. I scanned the rooftop, trying to see if anyone nearby noticed us, but most people were at the bar or in groups near the middle. We were basically alone at the edge. The music was loud enough to drown anything out if I yelled. She started asking questions you don't ask 5 minutes into a date. Who do I live with? Does anyone know where I am tonight? Do I trust people too easily? How long would it take before someone looked for me? I tried to laugh, but my voice cracked. She saw the fear on my face, and it seemed to make her happier. She asked if I ever read stories about people going missing from rooftops and how nobody ever sees what really happened. I shook my head. She told me a story about someone she used to know who promised her things and then embarrassed her in front of people. She said things didn't end well for him, that the wind helped her decide what to do. I thought maybe she was messing with me. Maybe she liked scary jokes. Maybe she was just weird. But then she stood up and walked behind my chair. Her hands rested on my shoulders like she was about to give a massage, but there was no comfort in them. She leaned in close and said I shouldn't disappoint her or the city would eat me. My legs started shaking. I tried to stand, but she pushed down on my shoulders lightly but firm, like warning me not to move. I looked straight forward because looking down made my stomach twist. She asked me what my biggest insecurity was, like she wanted something real. Something she could use. I told her I sometimes talk too much when I'm nervous. She said I was talking the perfect amount. Then she asked if I lied about anything in my profile. My heart was racing so fast I thought she could hear it. I said no. She didn't believe me. Her hands tightened on my shoulders again. The wind hit my back so strong it lifted my shirt a little. She laughed quietly like the gust was her friend. And then she walked around and sat back down next to me, grabbing my wrist again, even harder than before. I could feel her pulse, and it was too calm. I said I needed the toilet. She turned her head slow and asked if I would come back. I nodded fast, trying not to look terrified. She stared for a long second, then let go. She told me she'd be upset if I disappeared without saying goodbye, and that upset isn't a safe thing when she's high up. I stood and walked away as chill as I could. I didn't run until I reached the stairs. I sprinted down 3 floors before I stopped to catch my breath. My hands were shaking so hard I dropped my phone twice. I messaged my friend to pick me up around the corner and waited inside a supermarket until they came. I blocked her everywhere. I keep thinking about what she said. People usually fall if they disappoint me. Said like she's seen it happen more than once. Sometimes I imagine her sitting at the edge of that rooftop, waiting for the next person who doesn't know how close they are to becoming a story that just ends mid-sentence. I always thought the start of a date tells you everything you need to know. If the vibe feels right in the first 10 minutes, it usually ends up decent. If something feels off, you should trust it. My problem is I never trust that gut feeling until it's way too late. And this time, I learned that trusting the wrong person could literally trap you in a moving car with no escape. He messaged me nonstop the week before. Good morning texts, funny memes, asking what kind of food I liked. He seemed excited, and I liked that he made effort. When he asked if he could drive us on our date, I thought it sounded sweet. Like he wanted to take care of everything. I didn't even think twice. He said he'd pick me up from outside my house. I told him the time and everything seemed normal. The day comes and I'm waiting, trying to not seem desperate by looking out the window too much. He texts that he's pulling up and I step outside. I see his car. It's a black SUV, kind of big, windows tinted darker than they need to be. The engine was running already. I remember thinking the tint looked like something a celebrity or a criminal would have. He leaned over and opened the passenger door from the inside, waving me in like he was in a hurry. I got in and shut the door. It made a loud thud sound like it sealed me inside. He smiled and said I looked better in person. I tried to chill, but the first thing I noticed was the smell. It had this weird mix of air freshener and something like plastic. Then as I put my purse down on the floor, I froze. There was duct tape on the floor. And rope. Not normal small rope either. Thick rope, coiled like someone dropped it after using it. My heart skipped, but I forced myself to act calm. I asked why he had that stuff. He laughed lightly and said it was for work. Then he changed the subject instantly, asking what music I liked. I said I could play something from my phone, but when I grabbed the door handle just to check, it didn't open. I tried again casually, still locked. I pulled a little harder. Nothing. He must have seen my face change because he said the child lock was on. He said it like it was no big deal. He said he forgot to turn it off because he picks up his nephew sometimes. My chest felt tight. The road stretched ahead, and I realized I didn't know where we were going. He never said the place, just that he booked something special. My phone buzzed with a notification, and he glanced at it too fast. His eyes stayed on my purse for a second, like he was checking if I was reaching for it. Trying not to sound scared, I asked again what kind of work he needed rope and duct tape for. He took a long breath, then told me he did project jobs. He smiled again. It was too calm, like he was used to lying. I nodded even though I didn't believe a word. We kept driving farther away from busy roads. Houses disappeared behind big trees. He talked about random things like music and weekend plans, but his foot pressed heavier on the pedal. The speed climbed. Wind hit the car harder. I kept staring at the windows, wondering if someone could see me inside if I screamed. He noticed me looking uneasy. He said I looked tense and asked if I trusted him. I forced a laugh. I said of course, but my voice sounded fake even to me. He gave this tiny smirk like he knew. Then he said something that made every alarm go off inside my head. He told me he picked this date because he likes quiet places where people don't interrupt him. He said crowds make it complicated when he wants privacy. He tapped the rope with his shoe and said sometimes work follows him into his personal life. I was gripping my seat so hard my fingers hurt. I changed the subject fast and started asking him about his family, pretending to be genuinely curious. I needed him talking so he wouldn't notice me slowly adjusting how I sat. I moved closer to the door, thinking if there was ever a moment I could kick it open or something, even though I knew it wouldn't work. Child lock meant I was trapped unless he let me out. He took a turn toward a narrow road with no streetlights. I could barely see anything outside. Only trees. No other cars. The more he drove, the more my heartbeat turned into full panic mode. He whistled a tune like everything was going great. Then out of nowhere I said my stomach hurt and I needed a bathroom. I tried to act like it was an emergency. He didn't react at first. He kept driving. I repeated it with more urgency, holding my stomach and pretending I might throw up. He sighed annoyed, like I ruined his plan. Finally, he pulled into a small petrol station. Empty. The lights flickered above the convenience store. I said I'd be quick and reached for the door. Locked. His hand slowly lifted to the switch on his door. He looked at me with a blank expression before unlocking it. He said not to be long. I stepped out trying to hide how desperate I was. My legs were shaking. I told him I left my phone inside and he said he'd keep it safe. My stomach dropped. I nodded and walked inside the shop. The worker behind the counter barely looked up. I walked to the bathroom but didn't go in. Instead, I stood near the hallway watching him through the window. He stared at his phone. Then he looked at the rope again. Then he looked directly at the shop door like he was expecting me to come back. I walked quickly to the front, leaned over the counter, and whispered to the worker that I needed help. I asked him to call police quietly, telling him I felt in danger. He hesitated at first, but then saw my face and nodded. He grabbed the phone. I stepped back from the windows so the guy in the car couldn't see me. I kept watching, though, hiding behind the shelves. He got out of the car. He walked around to the passenger side and opened the door fully, checking for me. He leaned into the car like he was fixing something. Then he stood up and looked around slowly. The shop worker told me to go into the back storage area. I did and hid behind boxes. I heard the security lock beep at the front entrance as he tried to come inside. The worker locked the door on him. I heard him knocking once, then twice, then nothing. A few moments later, the car engine started. The tires screeched as he sped away. Police patrol showed up minutes later. They took my details. They checked the CCTV. They said they'd try to track him using the plate number, but they didn't sound confident. I never read any update. I never got my phone back either. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I didn't pretend to feel sick at the exact moment I did, if the petrol station wasn't open, if the worker didn't believe me. And every time I get into a car now, even with people I know, the first thing I check is whether the child lock is on. I swear I wasn't even planning anything crazy that night, just a simple first date. We met on a dating app, we joked around, she seemed normal enough. Pretty chill, liked horror movies, had a cute dog in one of her pictures. She asked if I wanted to come over to her place after we grabbed some food because her roommates were home and she didn't want to leave them waiting too long. That sounded fine to me. I thought having roommates made it safer anyway. Like if the date got awkward or something, there'd be people around to break the silence. Safety in numbers, right? Yeah, I should stop thinking like that. She lived in this old house at the end of a narrow street. It wasn't run down or anything, just old. The paint on the outside was chipped, and the windows looked like they had stories from 10 years ago stuck to them. She unlocked the door and told me to ignore the mess because her roommates were chaotic. I laughed and told her I didn't mind. She smiled and said they're always up to something. When we walked in, the place was weirdly clean. Not spotless like a show home, but cleaner than I expected from so-called chaotic roommates. A hallway was narrow with pictures on the walls of random landscapes. No family pictures. No pictures of her with friends, just forests and lakes and empty streets. She told me to take my shoes off at the door because her roommates hate shoe marks on the floor. I kicked my trainers off and followed her into the living room. The lights were warm and soft, and there was a couch facing a TV. She asked if I wanted a drink. I said sure, whatever she had. She went to the kitchen while I looked around. The place felt too quiet for a house that's supposed to have multiple people inside. Then I heard footsteps upstairs. Slow ones, like someone walking from one room to another. I figured it was one of the roommates, but the thing is, the footsteps didn't sound like regular walking. They stopped for long pauses like the person was listening. She came back with drinks in glass cups and handed me one. I thanked her and she sat next to me, close enough for our knees to touch. I tried to relax because she was honestly really pretty. We started talking about random stuff. Music, food, holidays. Then it happened again. Footsteps, louder now, moving across the floor above us. I looked up automatically, then laughed awkwardly. I said her roommate sounded busy tonight. She stared at me like she didn't know what I was talking about. Then she looked toward the stairs and smiled slightly. She said they always walk around at night. She said they get bored easily. She didn't call out to them, though. She didn't introduce us. She didn't even mention their names. A few minutes passed. Everything seemed okay until I heard whispering. Not loud enough to hear words, but definitely voices. More than one. They sounded like they were standing just out of sight. I froze a little and asked if her roommates knew she had someone over. She nodded slowly while sipping her drink, but she didn't look comfortable answering that. Her eyes drifted to the staircase again. I started paying attention more. The footsteps weren't normal. They were too light, like someone trying not to be heard. But the house was old, so every step creaked a little. The whispers came back, almost like they were arguing about something, and then silence, complete silence, like the house was holding its breath. I asked how many roommates she had. She looked at me for a moment like she was counting something in her head. Then she said 3. but the way she said it didn't sound confident. She said it like she was reciting a number someone told her to say. The air felt heavier suddenly. I didn't know how to explain it. Like someone was watching us from a corner my eyes couldn't reach. I tried acting normal because I didn't want to look paranoid. I asked if she wanted to watch a movie. She nodded and leaned closer to turn on the TV. Right when she reached out, there was a loud thump from upstairs. Not footsteps. A thump like something where someone fell hard. I jumped. She didn't. She just stared at the ceiling with a blank look. I asked if everything was okay out there. She smiled again, too calmly, and said her roommates are clumsy. More whispers. Faster this time. Like whoever was up there got annoyed. I realized I hadn't actually seen anyone else. No keys by the door. No jackets on hooks. No shoes lined up. No second or third toothbrush in the bathroom when I quickly looked as I walked past earlier. No noise that sounded like a TV or music from any room. Just these weird footsteps and voices that never got close enough for me to see where they came from. I told myself maybe they were shy and didn't want to come downstairs while she got a date over. But that didn't explain why they kept pacing above us like they were waiting. And then she asked me a question that finally made my skin crawl. She asked if I believed that people can stay in a house even after they stop live there. She talked slow as she said it, like she was testing my reaction. My throat got tight. I asked what she meant. She shrugged like it was no big thing. She said her roommates used to live here. She said they got really attached to the house. She said they never truly left. Another thump, closer to the stairs this time. She stood up like she was going to check, but instead she just looked toward the stairway and whispered something I couldn't understand. The house responded with a creak right above us. She looked relieved for a second, then sat back down like everything was normal. My body wanted to run so bad, but my brain kept trying to convince me this was just anxiety. I said maybe I should go because it was getting late. She grabbed my wrist so tight it hurt, and her voice changed. She said I shouldn't leave without meeting them. My heart dropped fast. I told her maybe next time. She kept squeezing harder and glanced at the staircase. The voices returned, angry whispering now. The footsteps got faster like they were rushing toward the stairs. That was enough for me. I yanked my wrist free, stood up, grabbed my shoes from the hallway, and ran out the door barefoot. I didn't stop running until I reached the end of the road. I didn't look back once. I didn't care. When I finally reached home and read her profile again, something hit me. All her photos were inside the house. Every single one. And the backgrounds always had shadows that didn't match her. I blocked her, deleted the app, but late at night, when everything is quiet, sometimes I swear I hear those same footsteps above my room, like someone followed me. I thought mini golf was the safest date idea ever. Bright colors, goofy courses, kids running around dropping ice cream, music playing in the background. Nothing scary ever happens at mini golf. Worst thing is losing a ball into a fake waterfall or getting embarrassed when you miss an easy shot. It's literally designed to be fun. So when this guy suggested it, I said yes without even thinking. He showed up looking normal. Plain hoodie, jeans, a little nervous smile. He hugged me hello and asked if I liked mini golf. I said yeah, even though I'm usually terrible at it. He laughed and said he was bad too, which I believed at first. We paid, got our putters, grabbed a score sheet, and walked up to the first hole. Right from the start, something felt off. He let me go first. I hit the ball, it bounced off a wall and somehow went straight into the hole. It was pure luck, but he cheered like I did something amazing. Then he took his turn. He lined up his shot like he played 1,000 times. Perfect posture, total focus. But right before he hit it, he looked over his shoulder like someone was watching him. Then he tapped the ball just hard enough to send it way off into a corner. It didn't even hit the right direction. He said quietly that it was okay. He said he couldn't let them know he was winning this time. I thought he was joking around, so I smiled and told him he'd get better. He didn't laugh, just stared at the ball like it betrayed him. We walked to hole 2. I missed the first shot and he told me to take my time. He whispered that it was fine for me to score well because they only watch him. I asked who they were and he shook his head like he said too much already. He hit his ball next him once again. He aimed perfectly but purposely made it bounce off the wrong direction. It didn't look like a clumsy mistake. It looked forced. We kept going. Kids and families were around us laughing, but for some reason no one ever came close. It was like the space around us stayed weirdly empty. He would whisper more every time he stepped up to putt, Stuff like can't risk winning again, and they hate when I get ahead. His forehead kept getting sweetier, his breathing shakier. I tried to lighten the mood by telling him mini golf doesn't matter that much. He nodded way too seriously and said that's why it works. They don't expect anyone to notice. He said it so quietly, I almost thought I imagined it. By hole 5, I noticed his hands were shaking harder every time he touched the club. He kept glancing around like someone invisible was watching closely. His eyes would widen randomly like he heard something I couldn't. He asked if I could hear them too. I told him no, and he stared at me like he wasn't sure if I was lying. Hole 6 was near a fake cave with a roaring sound effect and lights that flickered blue. As we walked up, he leaned closer and whispered that last time he played, he forgot to lose one hole and they punished him. I asked how, trying to stay casual. He lowered his voice to barely a breath. He said someone disappeared mid-game, just vanished, and no one noticed, not even the worker at the counter. I laughed awkwardly again, but my voice was shaking now. This didn't sound like jokes. He missed every shot in that hole on purpose again and smiled when the ball barely rolled. He looked relieved, like avoiding a win mattered more than anything. On hole 7, the path curved near the side fence. You could see the parking lot from there. I noticed how close we actually were to leaving. I kept thinking if I said I forgot something in my car, maybe I could leave quickly. Then he stood behind me while I took my turn. His breath hit the back of my neck. He whispered, "Don't make it too good. They'll think we're working together." His grip tightened on the putter like he was trying to calm himself down. I purposely missed. He nodded and whispered thank you like I saved him. At hole 8, a group of teenagers passed behind us laughing loudly. For a moment I felt safer. Then one of them looked over and waved. The guy I was with immediately stepped between me and them like he didn't want me interacting. He whispered they can't get involved. They aren't part of this. I looked at the teenagers again. They didn't even glance back. They were gone before I could blink. Hole 9 was shaped like a giant clown face. Bright, goofy, and loud. He stared at it like it was some horrible warning. I told him maybe we should sit for a bit, take a break, but he said we have to finish. His voice cracked when he said it. He told me leaving you for the last score makes things worse. I didn't want to know what worse meant. When he took his turn, he lined up again perfectly, and for 1 second, I swear he forgot to pretend. The shot was flawless. It went straight into the hole. A perfect score. He froze. His whole body stiffened like he knew he messed up. His eyes darted around fast, scanning every corner of the course. He whispered no over and over. The air felt colder suddenly. I noticed something important. No one was near us anymore. The whole place had people, but somehow everyone moved far away without me noticing. It was like a circle surrounded us where no one stepped inside. Even the worker in the booth looked down at his phone and didn't look up once. He said they're upset. They know I'm winning again. I wanted to tell him he wasn't winning anything. I was ahead by a lot. None of this mattered. But his panic was spreading into me now. I told him we should just go. He shook his head fast and grabbed my arm too tight. He said, "Don't run. They hate running." That was the moment I knew I had to leave anyway. I told him I needed the toilet. I tried to sound casual, but my voice cracked. He stared at me for a long second, then let go and told me not to take too long. I speed walked to the counter instead of the bathroom and told the employee I needed help fast. The guy barely looked at me but nodded and called someone. I didn't look back at the course. I didn't want to see if the guy was staring. Police came and walked with me to the parking lot. They asked which person I was with. I pointed toward the mini golf entrance. He was gone. Just gone. They checked cameras. They didn't see where he went after hole 9. They couldn't even see him clearly on the course, like he barely existed in the footage. I blocked him. Deleted the app. I still think about what he said, though. Can't let them know I'm winning this time, like he wasn't talking about us at all. Sometimes when I'm in public places, I look around and wonder if the people who are standing too far away are avoiding me or watching him. Or maybe they're part of whatever was following us around that night. I know this sounds dumb now, but when she first said she wanted to take me somewhere special for our first date, I thought it was cute. She said she hated boring places like restaurants or cafes and wanted to show me something unforgettable. I joked that unforgettable could be good or terrifying. She didn't laugh. She just smiled and said I would remember it forever. My stomach should have dropped right there, but I ignored it like an idiot. She picked me up in this old car that rattled every time she hit a bump. It smelled like dust and something sweet that didn't belong in a car. She told me we were driving just a bit outside town. I kept trying to guess where we were going, but she wouldn't tell me. Just kept glancing at me like she was excited to see my reaction. When we turned off the main road, the streetlights vanished. Just long, dark road surrounded by trees. I tried to play it cool, but I was gripping my seat so hard my fingers hurt. She noticed and asked if I liked surprises. I lied and said yes. After what felt like forever, she pulled up to this huge iron gate covered in rust and spider webs. Behind it, I could see shapes of old rides and broken signs. A fairground, completely abandoned. It looked like no one had stepped foot in there for years. I laughed nervously and asked if we were allowed inside. She reached into her pocket and held up a key ring with like 20 keys on it. She shook them with this proud look on her face and said she could get us in anywhere. She got out the car, walked straight up to the gate, and found the right key almost instantly. The lock clicked open like it was waiting for her. That was the moment I should have said nope and told her to drive me home. But instead, I followed her in. The metal gate creaked behind us like it was complaining about being disturbed. Inside, everything looked frozen in time. The ticket booth windows were smashed. The carousel horses were chipped, stuck mid-gallop with creepy smiles. The Ferris wheel towered above us, barely lit by the moon, seats swaying slightly like something invisible was riding it. She grabbed my hand and walked ahead like she knew the place by heart. I asked how she got the keys. She said her ex used to love it here, and they spent a lot of time exploring after it shut down. She said he used to call it their private kingdom. The way she said ex made it sound like a warning instead of a story. Then she added that he never found the exit. I stopped walking. She kept going a few steps before turning to stare at me. Her smile didn't match her eyes. I asked what she meant. She shrugged and said sometimes people get lost. Sometimes they look for a doorway, but the place won't let them leave. She said the fairground chooses who stays. Her voice was calm, though the words were not. I told myself she was joking in a spooky ghost tour kind of way. So I kept walking, even though my feet wanted to run in the opposite direction. She led me to the carousel first. The paint was faded and peeling, but when she touched the metal box near the control panel, she pulled out another key and twisted it in. The whole carousel jerked to life, lights flickering one by one, music starting slowly like a dying music box. The horses moved up and down in these slow, creepy motions. There was no electricity anywhere else, but somehow this thing still knew how to run. She asked if I wanted to ride it. I shook my head quick. She climbed on one of the horses anyway and stared at me as it carried her in a slow circle. Round and round, her eyes always locked on me every time she passed by. The music felt louder each time she went past me, like it was inside my ears instead of around me. When she stepped off, the ride stopped instantly. No slowing down, no music fade, just dead silence again. She took my hand and said she wanted to show me something even better. We walked toward the Ferris wheel. The closer we got, the more the metal creaked above us. Seats twisted slightly in the wind like they wanted to break loose. She took out an even bigger key and stuck it into this rusty control box. I swear the whole fairground held its breath. The Ferris wheel lit up with glitchy lights that flickered like they were remembering how to glow. It groaned as it started turning. She pulled me toward one of the seats and told me to get in. I hesitated, but she squeezed my wrist way too hard and said she didn't bring me here to just look. So I got in. The metal bar locked in place with a clang that echoed. She sat next to me, and the ride climbed higher. The fairground shrunk beneath us. From the top, I could see the entrance gate. Except, the gate wasn't where I remembered. The path we walked was gone, like the fairground swallowed it. I asked her if she moved the car or if there was another exit. She smiled without looking at me. She pointed down toward the center of the fairground. I looked and saw a sign that said EXI Hanging Crooked. The arrow pointed to a dark tunnel that definitely didn't exist when we first walked in. She whispered that her ex thought that was the exit too. She said he kept trying to find the real one, but the fairground didn't like quitters. She said he begged her once to help him leave. She said she told him the fairground already made its choice. When the ride came back down, I tried to open the bar instantly, but it wouldn't budge. She took out a key and unlocked it slow, taking her time, like she enjoyed watching me panic. She guided me toward the dark tunnel with that AXI sign hanging above. Every step felt wrong. The deeper we walked, the quieter everything got. No wind, no sound from the rides, just our footsteps. Then she stopped. She leaned close to my ear and told me something that froze every muscle in my body. She said the fairground already liked me. She said the fairground wanted me to stay. I stepped back and told her I needed fresh air or I might puke. She tilted her head, studying me, then nodded like she was deciding whether to let me move. She pointed back toward what I thought was the entrance path, even though it didn't look the same anymore. She said, "Try if you want." Maybe I was lucky. I walked fast. Then I ran. I didn't look back. Every direction looked wrong, but I kept going. I ran until I saw the gate again, just barely visible in the moonlight. I sprinted toward it like my life depended on it. I jammed my fingers into the edge of the gate and forced my body through. I ripped part of my jacket, but I didn't care. I bolted down the road until my throat burned. When I finally turned back, she was standing at the gate, just standing there, keys dangling from her hand, watching me. Not yelling, not chasing, just waiting. I didn't stop running until I reached somewhere with lights and people. I didn't look behind me again. Later that night, I checked her profile. It was gone, like she never existed. Sometimes I dream of that fairground, the carousel still turning, the Ferris wheel spinning even when no one's there, and a girl waiting by the gate holding a ring of keys. Waiting for the next person who doesn't know that some exits aren't real. I always thought taking pictures on dates was cute. A little cringe sometimes, but nothing scary. Just memories. Proof the night happened. So when he pulled out his phone and asked if he could take a photo of me to remember the night, I didn't stop to think. I just smiled and posed next to the restaurant sign like an idiot. He said it would help him never forget me. I thought that was sweet. I had no clue what he actually meant. We met on this dating app because he messaged me first. He seemed normal. Kind of shy in his profile pics, but he had a goofy smile that made me think he was harmless. We planned a dinner at his casual pasta place with fairy lights outside and a whole cute vibe. When I got there, he was already waiting by the entrance, hair combed too perfectly like he rehearsed it. He hugged me, but his arms stayed stiff, like he was copying what he thought a hug should look like. I didn't judge him, though. First dates are awkward. We sat at a table near the back. He asked a billion questions about my family, my schedule, who I live with, and if I usually tell anyone where I'm going. I thought he was just nervous. He barely talked about himself at all, like every detail about me was something he wanted to collect and store. At one point, the waiter surprised me with a birthday song and cupcake, even though it wasn't my birthday. The guy laughed hard like he planned this hilarious joke. I laughed too, even though it made no sense. I told myself maybe he misunderstood something I said earlier. I didn't want to make it weird. After dinner, while we were standing outside saying goodbye, he asked if he could take a picture of me. He said the night meant a lot to him. It felt rushed and random, but I agreed. He held his phone up, told me to smile, and took a couple shots. The flash was brighter than it needed to be. Right after snapping the last one, he stared at his screen and grinned way too wide. Then he said thank you like I had just handed him something valuable. He gave me a hug and said he hoped to see me again. His voice sounded shaky like he was excited about something that didn't include me. I left and didn't think much about it. I even texted my friend that it went okay. Not amazing, just okay. But that night, things got weird. He didn't text me at all after the date. No thank you message. No get home safe. Nothing. Which was strange because before we met, he spammed me with messages like he was obsessed. I figured maybe he wasn't that into me after all. Whatever. I got ready to sleep. Around midnight, I got a message from some random number. It didn't say anything, just a link. I almost didn't tap it. But curiosity is stupid at night. The link opened this dark, glitchy-looking website. It felt wrong instantly. The page background was black. Red text everywhere. Pictures of people. Rows of them. Every photo was of a girl, smiling awkwardly like she didn't know the camera was dangerous. Under each picture, there was a label. Found victim number 1. Found victim number 2. Found victim number 3. I scrolled faster, my heart hammering. The numbers climbed and climbed. I couldn't breathe. I should have closed it, but I kept going until. Found victim number 17. It was me. The photo he took just hours ago. Same pose. Same background. Same smile that now made me want to puke. My hair slightly covering one eye. My necklace tilted sideways. Me. And beneath the picture, one short sentence. Collected successfully. My chest felt like it was being crushed. My hands were shaking so bad I dropped my phone. I stared at it on the floor like it might explode. My mind kept trying to tell me it was a messed up prank, but everything in me screamed that it wasn't. I picked up my phone again and scrolled up to look at a few of the other girls. Different faces, different places, but all smiling cluelessly, and under their pictures, a date next to the word collected. Some were from months ago, some just a few days. No one looked like they knew what was really happening. I tried to screenshot, but the screen flashed, and the whole page blinked like it knew I was trying to save it. A message popped up across the screen. Don't try that again. My heart nearly stopped. Then my phone buzzed. A new message. Same unknown number. Thank you for tonight. I'll come find you soon. I dropped my phone again and locked my bedroom door, even though I knew that wouldn't help. I crawled to the window and checked outside. I didn't see anything, but I kept imagining him standing there just out of sight. I turned off every light, sat on the floor, and hugged my knees while trying not to cry out loud. I opened my phone to block the number, but before I could, another message appeared. The others didn't run fast enough. The website link disappeared immediately after that, like it erased itself from my phone. I checked my browser history. Nothing. I tried searching for the website name, no results. It was like it only existed to show me exactly what I wasn't supposed to see. I didn't sleep until sunrise. Every sound outside made me jump. I kept replaying the dinner in my head, trying to see if he hinted at something, trying to figure out if he ever planned to let me go home. The next morning, I went to the police. I showed them the text messages, but the link was gone. They couldn't find anything. They couldn't even track the number. They told me maybe it was just someone messing around. They took a statement, but I could tell they didn't believe me fully. But I believed that website was real. I believed the pictures weren't fake. And if the others in those photos were considered found, I think that means someone actually found them. And not in a good way. I blocked him everywhere. I deleted the app. I changed my number. Moved my bed away from the window. Bought cameras. I even taped my curtains so no one can see inside. It's been weeks now. The texts stopped. But something still feels wrong. Sometimes when I walk home, I swear I feel someone walking just a little too close behind me. Sometimes I think I see his hoodie across the street. Sometimes I wake up with the feeling that someone was watching me while I slept. And every single time I take a picture now, even a selfie, I check the background over and over. Because I keep thinking, what if there's already a new picture of me somewhere out there? What if I'm already victim number 18? I should have known something was weird the moment she asked if I wanted to meet her family on the first date. Nobody does that. First dates are supposed to be simple. Coffee, movies, a walk, not instantly meeting the whole family. But she said they were already having dinner together and she didn't want to cancel on them. And she said they were really excited to meet me because she talked about me a lot. I didn't even know what she could have said. We hadn't known each other that long. Still, she seemed genuinely happy, and I didn't want to look like a guy who's scared of families, so I agreed. She picked me up and drove us to this neighborhood I'd never been in before. Big houses, perfect lawns, a bunch of trees. Those places where every house looks copied and pasted. When we pulled into her driveway, I noticed the curtains in the living room move, like someone was already watching, waiting for me to arrive. Her family must have been standing right behind the door because the second she opened it, they all appeared at once like they were posed for a picture. Her mom, her dad, 2 brothers, and older sister, and they all smiled wide at me. But something was off immediately. They didn't just look related, they looked exactly like her. Same bright eyes, same perfect teeth, same weirdly wide smile like they practiced it in a mirror. Even her dad had her same smile, and when they said hi to me, their voices sounded almost identical. Same tone, same pitch, just copy after copy. They invited me in and surrounded me way too close, touching my shoulders and shaking my hands like I was some important guest or an object they wanted to inspect. Her mom said they were so happy I could join them. Her dad repeated the exact same sentence right after, same voice, same rhythm. I tried to laugh, but my throat felt tight. The house inside was neat. Too neat. No photos on the walls except ones of her. And in every one, she looked exactly the same. Same angle, same smile. Different backgrounds, same expression. Her brothers stared at me the whole time like they were waiting for me to slip up. Her sister kept standing way too close to me, smiling without blinking. Her mom told us dinner was ready and led us to the dining room. The table was already set like they knew I would definitely show up. One empty chair at the end. She pointed to it and said that's where the newest sits. Newest what? I sat anyway because I didn't know what else to do. The room smelled like food, but I didn't see any dishes. Her dad put his hand on my shoulder and asked me if I was ready to join. He said it slowly, word by word. Her mom asked the same question immediately after. Her brothers leaned in from both sides and asked it too, smiling like they couldn't wait for the answer. Join what? I tried to joke, but they were making it sound like a cult. They didn't react. Not one of them even blinked. Her dad finally walked into the kitchen and brought back a covered platter. He placed it gently in front of me. Everyone leaned forward. I could hear their breathing. They stared without even blinking. He slowly lifted the lid. Empty. Nothing on the plate. Her sister clapped once, excited. Her mom said good, good, very good. Her dad smiled at me like seeing nothing was exactly what he wanted. They all nodded like this was some test I apparently passed without knowing. Then all of them at the same time looked at her. She stared back at them without speaking. The room felt like it was heating up, but no one moved. Her dad nodded slightly. She smiled at me and whispered that she knew I would be the one. I stood up slowly even though my legs were shaking. I said I needed the bathroom. Her mom pointed down the hallway, but her brothers both stood up and said they'd show me. Their voices synced perfectly again. Walking between them felt like walking with two mirrors. They kept staring at me from the sides. It led me to a door and opened it. I stepped inside, and before I could turn around, the door slammed shut behind me. I flicked the light switch. Nothing. Darkness. But I wasn't alone. I heard breathing somewhere in the room, a slow dragging step. Then a soft whisper, same voice as hers, asking if I was ready to join. My heart punched my chest trying to escape. I found my phone in my pocket and turned the screen on for light. It glowed just enough to show faces on the walls. Dozens of photos. Not all of her this time. Pictures of different people sitting at that same dining table. People I didn't recognize, but in each one, the family stood behind them, smiling the same smile. Under every photo, one word, joined. My stomach twisted. I backed into the wall and something in the dark moved closer. The phone light caught the shape of someone crouched in the corner. A guy. Pale, thin, eyes wide like he hadn't slept in years. His mouth opened slowly, and he whispered, "Don't sit at the table again." Before I could ask anything, the door unlocked and swung open. She stood there smiling. She said the family was waiting. She grabbed my wrist and pulled. Her grip felt impossibly strong for someone her size. My phone slipped from my hand and hit the floor, screen cracking. As she pulled me back, I noticed something else. Her face wasn't exactly the same as it was at dinner. Her smile stretched wider now. Too wide. Like her skin wasn't used to stopping in a normal place. Her dad asked again if I was ready to join. Her mom asked again. Her brothers asked again. Her sister asked again. They all stepped toward me together. Perfect timing. Perfect voices, like one body pretending to be many. My fight or run instinct finally snapped loose. I shoved her and sprinted toward the front door. My shoulder crashed into it, and it flew open. I didn't stop to think. I didn't look back. I just ran. Down the driveway. Past the identical houses. My chest felt like it would explode, but I didn't stop until I reached a main road where cars were passing. When I finally looked back, her entire family was standing in the driveway in a line, watching, smiling. Her voice called out that I forgot to say goodbye, that they'd see me again soon, that nobody leaves before they're ready to join. I blocked her number instantly, deleted the dating app. I told some friends what happened, but even saying it out loud sounded insane. It joked about cults and clones. I didn't laugh. A week later, I checked the app again out of stupid curiosity. Her profile was gone. Every trace of her disappeared. But sometimes at night, I swear I hear that same voice outside my window, asking if I'm ready to join yet. I don't know why I agreed to go to his office for a first date. When he suggested it, he said the view from the top floor was insane at night. He talked about how calm the whole place felt after working hours, like the world paused just for you. It actually sounded kind of cool in the moment. I thought he was just a hard-working guy who wanted to show me the part of his life he was proud of. I told myself it was unique, romantic even. But now, every time I see a tall office building lit up at night, my stomach drops like I'm falling down the elevator shaft. We met outside the entrance. He looked nicer than he did in his pictures. He wore this clean button-down shirt tucked perfectly into his trousers, like he tried hard to look professional even when he wasn't working. He smiled big when he saw me and said I looked better in person. I followed him inside through these huge glass doors that locked automatically behind us with a loud click. It didn't bother me then. I thought that was normal after hours. His pass card beeped when he swiped the barrier, and he led me to the elevator. The whole lobby echoed. Every step sounded louder than it should. He pressed the button for the third floor first and said we'd stop there before going higher because he wanted to show me something. The elevator doors slid open and I stepped into a long hallway with dull carpet and white walls. Every door looked the same, lined perfectly down both sides. It smelled like cleaning spray and something else I couldn't figure out. He told me this floor was storage in old meeting rooms they didn't use anymore. The lights flickered slightly as we walked, and the silence felt heavy in my ears. Then I heard it. A bang. Loud, hard, like someone kicking a wall or slamming furniture. I froze. He kept walking like nothing happened. I stood there listening. Another bang came from behind a door a little ahead on the right, this time followed by a noise that definitely wasn't pipes or equipment. Crying. Not soft crying either. Someone was sobbing desperately, trying to muffle the sound. I asked him if someone else was here. He didn't answer at first. He just stopped and looked back at me with this weird, calm expression. Then he said sometimes people work late. He said stress can make people emotional. He said it like it was the most boring thing in the world. Another slam hit the door again, harder. I jumped. The crying turned into these desperate gasps like whoever was in there needed help now. I took a step toward the door and instinctively ready to ask if someone needed help. His hand shot out and grabbed my arm before I reached the handle. He held on tight, too tight. He shook his head once and said that room was locked. I told him it sounded like someone was in trouble. He smiled like I said something funny. He leaned in close and whispered that the people in there always make a lot of noise when someone new visits. My heart started rushing so loud I could barely hear anything else. He pulled me gently but firmly away from the door like he didn't want me anywhere near it. He said we should continue the tour. His voice stayed calm, but his grip on my wrist felt like he was warning me. We reached the elevator again, and he pressed the button for the top floor. I didn't want to ask more questions because my whole body was suddenly screaming at me that something was wrong. The elevator dinged softly, and we stepped inside. He stood closer this time, almost blocking the buttons. The doors opened to the 6th floor. The office space up there had long glass windows overlooking the city. The lights outside looked pretty, but inside the room felt dead. Desks perfectly lined up. Chairs tucked in. Computers off. No sign anyone ever worked there. Not one bit of clutter. It looked staged. He walked toward a little corner with a minibar set up, wine, glasses, all neat. He poured us both a drink. I didn't take mine. He asked me if I liked the office. I nodded because my mouth felt too dry to speak. Then he asked if I wanted to go back downstairs and meet them. I asked who he meant. He pointed down, toward the 3rd floor, toward that locked door. He said the people down there were very excited I came tonight. He said they don't get new visitors often. He said they love meeting people. He smiled calmly like he was offering something fun and friendly. I told him I wasn't feeling well and needed some air. He stared at me, no blinking, then asked me if I wanted to join them instead of heading out. He asked it like it wasn't a big decision, like he already knew the answer he wanted. The lights flickered again, and in the silence I swear I could hear faint banging through the floor. My hands were shaking now, trying to hide fear he definitely noticed. I said I needed the bathroom. He smirked slightly and pointed to a door near the elevators. The moment he turned around to pick up his glass again, I sprinted. I yanked the elevator button repeatedly until the doors opened and I dove inside. I hit the ground floor button like my life depended on it. The doors closed right as he turned, calling my name in that same polite voice like nothing was wrong. I didn't respond. I stared at the floor number dropping painfully slow. 6, 5, 4, 3. The elevator paused on 3. I held my breath so hard it hurt. The doors opened slightly, but something stopped them. I saw fingers, his fingers, jammed in the gap, forcing them wider. I slammed the close button over and over and over. The doors finally pushed his hand back and shut fully. I heard him yell once, not angry, just annoyed. The elevator finally reached the ground floor, and the second the doors slid open, I ran. The glass exit doors were locked. Alarm system lit red. I didn't think. I grabbed a chair from the lobby and smashed it at the glass as hard as I could. It cracked, but didn't break. I heard the elevator ding behind me. I screamed and slammed the chair again and again, until finally the glass shattered enough for me to squeeze through. The alarm started blaring like the building itself was screaming. I crawled out onto the pavement, knees cut on broken glass, and sprinted across the street without looking. I didn't stop running until I reached a gas station. I begged the worker to help me call police. He handed me his phone while staring at the cuts on my legs like he thought I'd been in a car crash. Police searched the building. They said they found nothing on the third floor except locked storage rooms. No signs of anyone inside. No crying. No banging. The guy. Gone. His details on the dating app. Deleted. His phone. Off. His identity. Fake. They told me I probably misheard pipes or machinery. That I panicked and imagined things. That I should go home and rest. I know what I heard. I know someone was behind that door. And sometimes when I try to sleep, I can still hear that banging, that crying, like whoever was in there still wants someone to open the door. And the thing that terrifies me the most is the way he said, meet them. Not it. Not the person. Them. I should have known a first date in the middle of a forest was a stupid idea. She said she had this cute picnic spot she loved, away from traffic and people. Somewhere quiet where we could actually talk. She sent me a location and I didn't think twice. I thought the idea was kind of sweet. Nature and snacks. What could go wrong? She picked me up because she said parking was weird there. I got in her car and she had a basket already packed. She joked that she hoped I liked sandwiches and strawberries. She seemed fun. Bright smile, chatty, exactly the type of date you hope for. The drive started normal, but the farther we went, the fewer houses I saw. Then no houses at all. Just trees. No streetlights. Just dirt road and silence. I asked if we were almost there, and she said, yeah, just a little further. She rolled the windows down and said she loved breathing fresh, untouched air. I laughed, but inside I was kind of wishing we'd stuck to a cave. Eventually, she stopped the car on a small patch of grass near a trail. We got out, and she handed me the basket. It was heavier than I expected. She grabbed a blanket and told me to follow her. The trail led deeper into the forest, and the trees blocked out most of the evening light. I could hear birds and insects, but nothing else. No cars, no voices, just us and the woods. After about 10 minutes of walking, she stopped in a clearing. She laid the blanket down and told me to set the basket in the middle. At first glance, the place looked pretty. Soft mossy ground, sunlight sneaking through the branches, quiet air. But then I noticed the ground wasn't as flat as I thought. I looked around and saw the dirt everywhere was uneven. Mounds and dips. At first I thought it was just roots. But when I stepped closer to one patch, the soil looked freshly turned, like someone dug a hole and filled it back up recently. Then I noticed another, and another, and another. There were dozens of them. Some shallow, some deep. Circles of fresh dirt scattered around like random graves. I pointed to one and asked what that was. She acted like she didn't know what I meant. She said the forest animals do weird things sometimes, but my stomach was already starting to twist. She opened the basket and started setting out food like nothing was weird. She handed me a sandwich and asked if I wanted water. I looked around again. More holes, some with small shovels stuck beside them, some with dirt piled next to them like the dating hadn't been finished. She followed my eyes and noticed what I was staring at. She smiled like she was waiting for that moment. Then she stood up slowly and walked toward one of the holes. She gripped the handle of a shovel sticking out of the ground and pulled it up with a soft grunt. Dirt fell off the metal blade. She turned around holding it like she was offering me a gift. She said she brought extras in case I wanted to help. Help with what? She walked closer, holding the shovel out toward me. Her smile didn't change. Her voice didn't change. She said depending on how the date went, there might be another hole by morning. She laughed. Not cute laughter. The kind that sounds like she's trying to copy what laughing is supposed to sound like. I forced a laugh back, though my throat felt like it was closing. I told her she was joking. She didn't answer, just tilted her head slightly and kept smiling at me like a doll. Then the wind blew hard and I saw the dirt around the nearest hole shift a little. The soil sank in the middle. Not a lot. Just enough to make my heart stop. I stared at it and she followed my eyes again. She whispered that sometimes things move down there. She whispered that sometimes they aren't done. I stepped back slowly, but she stepped forward faster. She placed a shovel against my chest lightly. Not pushing, just touching, reminding me it was in her hands. She asked if I wanted to know why she picked me today. She said most guys don't come this far into the woods voluntarily. She said she liked that I trusted her. She said trust makes everything easier. I told her the forest was getting dark and maybe we should head back. She said we hadn't even started the real part of the date. She said a good date ends with a secret buried. She said it in a soft voice like she was reading a bedtime story. My lungs felt like they were shrinking. I tried to step around her, but she moved with me, blocking my way out. She lifted the shovel just slightly like she was deciding which part of me she'd aim at first. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears like it was banging to get out of my chest. I told her I needed the toilet. Dumb excuse, but the only one that came out. She paused, stared straight into my eyes, and then she nodded slowly. She pointed to some bushes a bit further away and said she'd wait. She told me not to go too far because people get lost in these woods. And she said if I tried to run, she'd hear me digging my own panic into the ground. I walked toward the bushes like my legs were borrowed and could give out any second. The second she looked down to fix something in the basket, I sprinted. I didn't look back. I didn't try to be quiet. I just ran. Through branches cutting my arms, through leaves blinding my path. My legs shook each step, but I kept going. I didn't hear her behind me. I didn't know if she was chasing me or if she decided to wait near the holes. I only stopped when I saw a car on a distant road through the trees. I scrambled over logs and dirt until I reached it. A couple inside saw me waving and probably thought I was insane, but when they saw my face and the scratches all over me, they unlocked the door and let me in. They drove me straight to a petrol station where I called police. I told them everything. They went to the location. They found the clearing. But they said the holes looked like animal burrows. They didn't see any shovels. They didn't see any picnic setup. And the girl? No trace. Her profile on the dating app was deleted by the time I checked my phone. Police told me forests can play tricks on people. They said I might have imagined the worst, that nothing illegal happened. But I know what I saw. I know what she said. And sometimes when I try to sleep, I picture those fresh holes. All of them waiting. All of them the same size. Perfect length. Perfect width. Like she already measured me. I don't usually go to a guy's flat on the first date. My friends always warn me that it's dumb and dangerous and all that. But he didn't seem like the dangerous type at all. He worked in tech, had a weirdly polite way of talking, and apologized for every tiny thing like stepping slightly too close or mispronouncing my name. He suggested cooking for me instead of going out because he said restaurants were too loud and he liked making dinner personal. I told myself that sounded nice, like he actually cared enough to put in effort. I should have listened to my friends. The apartment building looked normal enough. Quiet street, nothing shady around. He buzzed me in and ran down the stairs to greet me like he couldn't wait for me to arrive. He hugged me quickly, then backed up and said sorry like he touched a hot stove. Nervous guy energy. It didn't weird me out yet. His flat was on the third floor. When we stepped inside, it smelled like air freshener and a little bit like plastic. Not dirty, not messy. Actually too clean, like a hotel room instead of a home. Bare walls, gray sofa, a shelf with only one plant on it. No family photos. Nothing personal. He asked me to make myself comfortable while he finished up in the kitchen. I sat on the sofa and looked around a bit. That's when I noticed it. A phone was sitting upright on a shelf across the room screen facing me. The camera was on. Recording. I could see the tiny red dot in the corner. I tried to ignore it at first. Maybe he forgot. Maybe he used it for cooking videos or something. I didn't want to jump to conclusions. But then when I stretched my legs out, I spotted another phone tucked behind a cushion, lens peeking through a gap. Also recording. My chest tightened a little. I pretended to adjust my hair and used the mirror on the wall to glance behind me. Another phone on the bookshelf, hidden slightly behind a book, but facing directly at me. That's 3. I stood up casually, like I just wanted to look around. My hands were shaking a bit, but I forced myself to breathe slow. On the TV stand, a phone laying flat but angled up like it was filming. Red dot flashing. 4. I swallowed hard and told myself maybe he was some dumb influencer. But then something else clicked in my brain. Why did he need 4 angles of one girl sitting on a sofa? I stepped quietly toward the hallway. The bathroom door was half open. Inside, on the sink next to a toothbrush, another phone. Camera pointing directly outward. 5. My heart beat out louder. I checked his bedroom door without touching it. Slightly open. A phone taped under the lamp on his bedside table. Another clipped to the curtain rod. Another tucked into a plant pot. 8. This wasn't normal. The prickly fear feeling started creeping on my spine. There was a phone high in the corner of the hallway too, like a security camera. I didn't even want to think about how many more I wasn't seeing. He called from the kitchen asking if I liked pasta. His voice sounded cheerful. Too cheerful, like he was having the best night ever. I walked back to the sofa slowly and sat, pretending everything was fine. I scanned the room again. Every single phone was pointed directly where I was sitting. Not at the kitchen, not at the door, not anything else. Just me. He came out holding 2 plates and placed them on the coffee table. He sat way too close. I could feel him staring at my face, waiting for some kind of reaction. I forced a smile and said it looked great. He asked if I could look at him. I didn't realize I had been avoiding eye contact. When I finally looked, I noticed something in his eyes. Not excitement, not nervousness. Anticipation. He said he wanted to remember this night forever, that this moment was special, that I looked perfect sitting there. His voice was too calm now, too steady, like he rehearsed the words. I told him his flat was nice. He giggled, then said he spent a long time preparing it for me. Preparing what? Preparing who? I asked if those phones were for work. His smile froze, like his whole face paused. Then he asked which phones I meant. I didn't want to point them out, but he stood up suddenly and walked around behind the sofa. He stood between me and the doorway like he was blocking an exit. He said again, slower this time, which ones? I said I just noticed one in the living room, just one. I didn't want him to know how many I saw. He nodded slowly and said that sometimes people notice 1 or 2, but never all. Then he asked if I wanted to see something cool. My entire brain screamed absolutely not. But he didn't wait for an answer. He reached behind the TV stand, pressed something, and the television lit up. Multiple screens appeared. A grid. 12 windows, each one showing a different camera angle. Every window showed me. Me sitting on his sofa. Me standing in the hallway. Me peeking at the bedroom. Me touching my hair. Me breathing. Like a live surveillance broadcast of every move I made since I stepped inside. He stepped beside the TV like a salesman showing off a product. He said he liked seeing moments from all angles. He said it helped him remember details better. I asked him why he needed so many cameras for one person. He said one word. Proof. I didn't want to ask what that meant. I didn't want any explanation at all. He pointed to one of the screens. It was a view from above. Me sitting exactly where I was currently seated. He tapped it with his finger and whispered that this was his favorite angle of me. I instinctively reached for my phone. He saw. He smiled too big and asked if I wanted to take a picture too. My throat tightened. I said I needed the toilet. He chuckled and pointed down the hall. He said he'd leave the cameras running so I wouldn't feel alone. That's when I knew he wasn't joking about any of this. I walked down the hall like someone balancing on a tightrope above fire. I shut the bathroom door, locked it, then looked around. There was no window, no other door. But there was a phone plugged into the wall near the toilet with the camera pointed up. I took a towel, threw it over the phone, and my hands were shaking violently now. My body wanted to collapse and scream, but my brain forced me to find a way out. He had locked the apartment door when we arrived. I heard the lock. There was no fire escape in the bathroom. My only chance was to walk past him again. I splashed water on my face and told myself to act. Not think. Act. I opened the bathroom door and walked straight toward the front door. He called out asking if I was okay. I didn't answer. He stepped toward me asking if I wanted dessert. I unlocked the door faster than I've ever done anything in my life. Swung it open and sprinted. I nearly fell down the stairs, but adrenaline held me up. I hit the street barefoot and kept running until I reached a main road with bright signs and normal people. I looked back only once. He was standing at the doorway, not chasing, just standing there, phone in his hand, recording me leave. I went to the police later, but all I could say was I saw a lot of phones. They didn't take it seriously. They said maybe he had security concerns. They didn't even go to check. They told me to block him and stay somewhere safe. I blocked him, but that didn't help. Sometimes at night, my phone vibrates once with no notification. My front camera flickers black for a second like something opened it without permission. I'll wake up and find my curtains slightly parted, or my door unlocked even though I swear I locked it. And every time I look into a mirror now, I can't stop thinking about one thing. Maybe somewhere on some screen, I'm still one of his angles. First date nerves are normal. I kept telling myself that the whole way there. We were supposed to just grab food, nothing intense. She had that perfect mix of cute and sarcastic online, and she sent voice notes that made her sound genuinely excited to meet me. I thought maybe I finally matched with someone who wasn't weird or trying to scam me. Just a real girl who liked the same movies as me. We agreed to meet outside this burger place near the river. When she showed up, she actually looked like her pictures, which already felt like a win. She hugged me like we knew each other for ages and made a joke about my jacket looking too warm for the weather. She had that type of confidence that makes you want to impress her even more. The food came quick, and the date actually felt great. We were laughing, talking trash about the cheesy music playing, sharing fries. I started relaxing for the first time all week. She asked a bunch of questions about my health and if I ever broke any bones. I thought she was just being curious or trying to be funny, so I answered everything without thinking too hard. Halfway through, she got a text that made her face tighten up a bit. She stared at her phone longer than someone does when they just got a normal message. I asked if everything was okay. She said yeah, totally fine, but her brother wanted to meet me. She said he's protective and sometimes too involved, but she promised he'd only stay a second. She laughed like it was no big deal. I didn't want to ruin the vibe by saying no, so I just nodded like, sure, why not? We walked outside, and she waved someone over from across the street. I turned to look and saw this massive guy stepping out from behind a tree. He wasn't just tall. He was built like a bouncer who never skipped any workout ever. His clothes barely fit around his arms. His face was covered in scars that looked like claw marks. Not small ones either. Like something tried to tear him apart and failed. He walked up without saying hi. He didn't even look at her. He looked at me, eyes wide, breathing heavy. He grinned, but it wasn't a friendly grin. More like he was proud of something only he understood. He leaned too close to my face and said in this low, rumbling voice, "We finally found one that matches." I laughed because what else do you do when a giant stranger says that like he's been hunting you? He didn't laugh back. He grabbed my wrist, turned my arm slightly, studying my skin. He nodded slowly like he was inspecting fresh meat. He said the same thing again, but slower this time. "We finally found one that matches." I pulled my arm back, trying to joke it off. I said he must be mixing me up with someone else. The girl put her hand on her brother's shoulder and told him to chill, that I wasn't ready yet. Ready for what? She didn't explain. She just said it like it was a normal part of dating. Then she invited me to walk with them to the river. My heart was racing, but I didn't want to look scared. We started walking, and the brother stayed behind me the whole time. His footsteps sounded like bricks hitting the path. Every few seconds, he would mumble something under his breath that sounded like numbers. Counting, typing something. The girl kept talking like nothing weird was happening, asking if I had allergies, if I ever donated blood, if my parents were healthy. Stuff that started to feel more like medical forms than small talk. I tried to ignore him breathing behind me, but it was impossible. It sounded like he was inhaling the back of my neck. We reached this quiet area by the water where the street lights were dead, and the buildings across the river looked like shadows. She stopped walking and faced me. Her brother stood directly behind me now, close enough for me to feel his body heat. She smiled at me, but this time it wasn't cute. It was stretched bigger than before, like her face was trying to hold a smile too wide for her skin. She asked if I believed in fate. I told her I wasn't sure what she meant. Then she said her family had been looking for someone like me for a long time. She said not everyone is compatible. She said some people don't survive the process. She said most people break. Her voice sounded too calm talking about people breaking. I stepped back a little, but my back hit her brother's chest. He didn't move. I think that was the moment I realized they weren't messing around. I told her I needed to leave. She tilted her head and said not yet. Her brother whispered again, louder now. He matches. Perfect match. They started singing together like some creepy chant. Perfect match. Perfect match. I tried to run, but his hand grabbed the back of my jacket and yanked me off my feet like I weighed nothing. I slammed into the dirt and felt rocks dig into my palms. He stood over me, blocking out what little light was left. I scrambled backward, and he grabbed my ankle. His grip was like metal. I kicked at him with my other foot over and over, panicking. A shoe flew off. He didn't even flinch. The girl crouched in front of me and told me to calm down. She said it's easier if I don't fight. She reached toward my face like she wanted to pet me. That's when instinct took over. I kicked her as hard as I could in the knee. She screamed, surprising both of us. She lost her balance and fell sideways. Her brother looked shocked for half a second and loosened his hold on my ankle. That tiny moment was all I had. I twisted out of his grip, got to my feet, and sprinted. I didn't look where I was running. I just ran. Branches hit my face, bushes ripped my clothes. I could hear them behind me, both shouting my name like we were playing some sick game of hide and seek. When I reached the main road, I weighed down a car like a maniac. The driver slammed the brakes and yelled at me until he saw the fear on my face. I jumped inside and told him to just drive. He didn't ask questions. I looked back once and saw them standing at the edge of the trees, both staring, both smiling. When I got home, I blocked her instantly, reported her profile. But the next day when I checked again, her account wasn't there anymore. Not blocked. Gone, like it never existed. The police said maybe I'd exaggerated the situation. That some people have messed up brothers and sometimes panic makes things feel worse. They said nobody else reported anything similar. But sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night convinced someone's standing outside my bedroom door, listening to my breathing, waiting to see if I'm still the match they wanted. And the worst part, when I went to shower the next morning, I noticed bruises up my arm in the exact shape of his fingers, like a reminder. We found one that matches. I knew something was weird the second I got there. He told me he got free tickets to a small local concert, said it would be fun and chill, nothing too crazy. I thought we'd be squeezing through a crowd, maybe shouting over loud music. Instead, when we walked through the side door of the venue we somehow had access to, the whole place was empty. Not like early arriving empty. Literally nobody. No fans. No staff. Just rows of silent seats and a big stage with instruments already set up like ghosts were supposed to play them. I laughed and said, maybe we were super early. He didn't laugh. He just stared at the stage like he was waiting for something only he could see. Then he said the band didn't like people gathering first. He said they wait for new energy to arrive before they start. Fresh energy. He said it like it was a normal thing. Like every band refuses to perform unless they have fresh energy. I stood there thinking maybe he was joking. But he didn't look like he was joking. He didn't even look like he heard himself say something creepy. He just kept walking toward the front row like he knew exactly where we should sit. I followed because leaving right and would made me look dramatic. I figured maybe this was some private show and more people would come. But the room kept feeling more wrong with every step. The air was heavy, like the speakers were already humming even though they were silent. We sat down and he scooted a little too close. He leaned toward me and said he was glad I said yes to this date. He said not everyone is chosen. I told him he was making it sound like a cult concert. He smiled wide, too wide, like that was exactly what he wanted. I kept checking the door, expecting someone to walk in and tell us the event was canceled. But no one came in. No one left. Just us in that giant dark room with instruments sitting there like they were waiting to wake up. He asked if I liked live music. I said yeah. He asked if I ever felt music in my bones before. I said I wasn't sure what that meant. He said I'd find out soon. The lights flickered once. Soft purple glow hid the stage, then went back to normal. He whispered that they were getting ready, that they could feel me now. I laughed because I didn't know what else to do. The laugh sounded too loud in the empty room and bounced off the walls like something else laughed back. I told him I was gonna get water. He suddenly grabbed my wrist and squeezed. Hard. His voice changed. Deeper. He said don't go backstage. That they weren't ready yet. His eyes looked darker than before, like someone turned the light off inside them and left the windows open. I pulled my hand back and told him to chill. He started apologizing fast, like he was afraid I'd leave. He said this night mattered. He said he needed me to stay close. He kept repeating that the music needs fresh energy. Fresh, like he wanted the word to mean something I wasn't getting. The lights flickered again. Longer this time. I swear I thought I saw silhouettes on the stage, 3 tall figures, but the second I blinked, they were gone and the instruments sat untouched again. I told him maybe we should go because the show's clearly canceled. He didn't answer. He was staring at the stage with his mouth slightly open, breathing too slow, like something was pulling his attention forward. The lights flicked a third time. Then they shut off completely. Instant darkness. Thick, like someone wrapped the whole place in black cloth. I froze. Couldn't even see my own hands. Couldn't see him. But I heard him. He started whispering something I didn't understand, repeating it like a chant. I heard his chair move. I heard his footsteps walking away, not toward the exit. Then I heard something else. On stage. Not footsteps, something dragging. Heavy. Metal clinking like someone grabbed the mic stand. Then a string pluck. Quick, sharp, wrong. A guitar note like it was trying to scream. My chest tightened and I tried to move, but my legs weren't listening to my brain. The dragging sound came closer. Closer. Creeping across the stage floor. I whispered his name, but he didn't answer. Instead, he whispered something right behind me that made every muscle in my body lock. They're here because of you. His breath was cold on my ear like he wasn't human anymore. I stood up fast and stumbled forward, hands out trying to find anything in the dark. The floor changed from carpet to wood. Stage. I didn't know. My foot kicked something, and it rattled. Drum. Chair? My breathing turned loud and shaky like panic was eating all the air. A spotlight blasted on above me. Just one. Right over where I was standing. I threw my arm up to block the light. Once my vision adjusted, I wished I stayed blind. There were figures around the edges of the stage. Tall, skinny, heads tilted like they were studying me. Their arms looked too long. Their hands too many-jointed. It made tiny sounds like strings being tuned. He walked into the light, smiling. His eyes were wide and glassy. He opened his mouth and his voice sounded doubled now, like something spoke through him. The band needs you with the crowd. I said I didn't want to be here anymore. He laughed like he thought that was adorable. He said I already gave them what they needed. I asked what that meant. He pointed behind me. Every seat in the audience was filled. People, no, not people, packed into the chairs, motionless, heads tilted, faces pale and stiff like wax, eyes wide and glassy like mannequins staring only at me. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds, all silent, all waiting. The lights flickered again. The room shook with a pulse of bass that felt like a heartbeat. Then a voice echoed through the speakers, not singing but growling one long note that sounded more like hunger than music. He whispered beside me, "Fresh energy has to come from somewhere." I didn't think. I jumped off the stage, twisting my ankle when I hit the floor. Pain shot up my leg, but I forced myself up. I sprinted to the exit door and slammed into it. It didn't budge. I screamed for help and banged on the door until my fists hurt. The music behind me got louder and louder like it was chasing me. I turned around once and saw them, those stage things, moving now. Fast, too fast. The emergency exit sign flickered above another door. I ran for it. I didn't look back again. I kicked the bar, the door flew open, and I bolted out into the alley. Cold night air hit me like life slapping me awake. I ran until I reached a busy street. Cars. People. Normal noise. I blended into it, choking on my own breath. I'd never saw him again. His profile disappeared that night. The venue claimed no show was scheduled. The door I ran out of bricked up when I tried to find it again days later. But sometimes when I'm alone and everything is quiet, I swear I hear a guitar string pluck once in the dark, like they're still waiting for the encore. I should have known something was off when she said she had a surprise planned for our first date. Surprises are only good when you trust the person, and I barely knew her. We talked online for like a week. She was chill though. Funny. Cute selfies. She said she wanted to show me something important. I didn't want to be the guy who freaks out over everything, so I said, yeah, sure, why not? She picked me up in a small car with a bunch of hospital parking stickers on the windshield. She said she worked in healthcare and joked about how the place haunted her dreams. I laughed, thinking she meant paperwork and annoying patients. She told me to be stopping by the hospital first because she forgot something for tomorrow's shift. That sounded believable enough. We drove through town and pulled up behind the hospital, not the main entrance. An underground parking bay with dim flickering lights and echoing drips from pipes above. She parked way too far from the elevator. I asked why, and she said she doesn't like parking near the cameras. That was the first comment that made my stomach twist a bit. We walked into the staff entrance. The walls had that weird hospital smell, clean but rotten underneath, like sickness trying to hide behind bleach. The lights buzzed loud as we passed through a long hallway that led to an elevator that looked like it belonged in a horror movie. She pressed the button for the basement. I joked, saying I didn't sign up for a ghost tour. She just smiled and said the surprise was down there. She squeezed my hand like she couldn't wait. When the elevator doors opened, cold air slapped my face. The basement wasn't like the hospital above. It looked like storage, but not the clean kind. Old beds stacked over each other. Broken wheelchairs. A metal cart with dried dark stains I didn't want to guess. The lights barely worked. Just a few hanging bulbs swinging slightly like they were recently bumped. She told me to wait while she grabbed something. Then she pulled out a box from her tote bag and handed it to me. I opened it slowly, confused. Inside was a hospital visitor badge, with my name printed on it. A picture of me I never took. And under that, a line that said, "Date of death, today's date." My fingers went cold instantly. I stared at it and tried to laugh, but the sound got stuck in my throat. She watched my reaction closely like she was waiting for me to either scream or faint. I told her it wasn't funny. She said it wasn't a joke. Her voice wasn't playful anymore. Completely flat. Empty. She said she had been looking for me for a long time. That today was finally the right day. She pointed down the hallway and told me the second door on the right is where we needed to go. Needed, like there was no option. I started stepping backward, but she grabbed my wrist tighter than anyone should. Her nails dug in. She pointed again and slower, like she was giving directions to a child. Second door, on the right. The hallway felt like it stretched forever. I didn't want to go anywhere near those doors. I told her we should go back upstairs. She kept walking forward, pulling me along. Every step made my heart thump harder and louder in my ears. We passed a door labeled biohazard, another labeled morgue access only. She didn't even glance at them. She was laser focused on that second door on the right. The walls down here had cracks like something inside them was trying to break out. When we reached the door, she finally let go of my wrist. My skin burned where she touched me. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a hospital master key. She unlocked the door like she'd done it 1,000 times. The room was dark inside. Too dark. A hallway light barely cut through the shadow. I stayed in the doorway while she stepped in like she belonged there. She told me to come inside because the surprise was waiting. I said no. She sighed loudly like I was annoying her. Then she clapped twice. The lights flickered on. Cold white light. And I saw 4 beds lined up, each with a person on them. But they weren't awake. They weren't moving. They were covered with sheets, except for their faces. Every face had the same tag attached to the bed frame. Date of death, today's date. Same name format. Different people. One bed was empty. Only one. She walked to the empty bed and patted it gently like she was smoothing wrinkles out of a blanket. She looked at me and smiled sweetly, tilting her head. She said that one was mine. She said I shouldn't worry because nobody feels anything after the first few seconds. She walked toward me slowly, whispering that once I joined the others, everything would make sense. I bolted. Didn't think, just ran. I sprinted back to the elevator and slammed my hand against the buttons. She called my name sharply from down the hall. I didn't look back. The doors opened and I dove inside, smashing the close button again and again. Her footsteps got faster. The doors closed just before she reached me. She slammed her hands against the door, and I could feel the vibration through the metal. She kept yelling that I wasn't safe out there, that she was trying to help me, that the world above was already done with me. The elevator reached ground floor and I exploded out of it, pushing through a maintenance door, running across the parking lot without looking for cars. I didn't stop until I made it to a 24-hour shop down the road. I locked myself in the bathroom and cried until I could breathe again. When I finally told the police, they checked the basement. They said no beds were found, no bodies, no evidence I was ever there. They said maybe I mixed floors up and panicked. They said visitor badges don't include death info. They treated me like I was losing it. But the badge was real. I still have it. Her profile. Gone. Not blocked, deleted, completely erased. And sometimes when I wake up at night, I swear I hear metal bed wheels rolling somewhere below the ground, like something is looking for the spot reserved for me. And the badge. The date of death changed. Now it says TBD. I always thought the scariest part of a first date was before it started. The waiting, the guessing, the hope that the person isn't secretly weird or dangerous. The whole night I kept thinking, wow, maybe I actually found someone who isn't strange at all. He paid attention. He laughed at my jokes. He asked real questions about my day instead of just nodding and staring at my chest. Everything felt normal. Good even. But the part you never think about is leaving. We met at this new restaurant by the river that everyone online said was fancy but affordable. It had candles on every table and little strings of lights across the ceiling. Kinda magical. The waiter brought us drinks with fruit in them, and he let me try his pasta because I couldn't decide what to order. We talked about our families, where we live, shows we like watching. He wasn't pushing anything. Not clingy. Not awkward. For once, I felt like I didn't have to make an excuse to escape. Which is funny because that's exactly what I ended up needing to do. It all started when I got a text from my friend asking if the date was going well. I looked at the time on my phone and realized it was already past 11. I told him I should probably head home soon since I had work in the morning. He nodded and said of course, he totally understood. Nothing suspicious. But when I got up and walked toward the door, the handle didn't move. I pulled harder. Nothing. Like someone welded it shut. I laughed nervously and said, guess the lock is sticky. The waiter near the entrance watched me, but didn't move to help. I turned and asked if there was another exit. He stared at me confused and asked if I needed something. I said, yeah, the door is stuck. He frowned that I was bothering him and said that door doesn't open to the outside, only storage. That made no sense because I literally came in through that same door not even 2 hours ago. I told him that, and his face changed like he was trying to hide a smirk. He said, sorry, this is a staff-only area and that customers use the front entrance. Except that was the front entrance. I walked to the opposite side of the restaurant to check the other door. Locked. No sign of a keyhole. No panic bar. Just a door that wasn't a door anymore. A couple at a nearby table glanced up at me like they were curious what I was doing, but then they went right back to their food, like whatever was happening wasn't important enough to care. I went back to the original door and pushed again, putting my whole weight into it. Still nothing. I felt the first wave of panic pinch my lungs. I tried to stay calm and walked back to my date. I told him the doors were stuck. He said that's weird. They weren't stuck when I walked in. He said it so casually like he was talking about the weather. He suggested I sit back down while they figure it out. I said no, I really needed to go. He shrugged and said okay, but when he waved at a waiter to help, the waiter ignored him. He waved again and again. Nothing. I walked right up to that waiter and asked directly if he could unlock the doors. He blinked slowly like he was trying to remember who I was. Then he asked if I had a booking. I told him obviously yes. I've been eating here for 2 hours. He shook his head and said he didn't recall serving me. He even looked at the menu like it would help him remember. He said maybe I was confused because they didn't have walk-ins tonight. I pointed at my date and said he was sitting with me this whole time. The waiter looked over and said he didn't rent any order for 2 people. He said the gentleman was dining alone. My stomach dropped like someone punched me from inside. I looked around. Every person in the restaurant was staring now. Not openly. More like sideways glances, like I was a strange one haunting their nice evening. My date stood up slowly, hands in his pockets. He told me to calm down. He said maybe I just needed more water. His voice sounded wrong now. Too smooth. Too rehearsed. I backed away from him. I went to the kitchen door and pushed. Locked. I banged on it, but nobody inside reacted. The staff moved around behind the window like robots. Same motions, same rhythm. No one looked up. I tried the bathroom hallway next. Locked. Even the fire exit sign above the door flickered like a bad joke. That's when I realized something terrifying. There were no windows. Not a single window in the whole place. I walked around the entire restaurant scanning the walls. Nothing but brick and shadows. The candles seemed dimmer now. The room quieter. The air heavier. My heart started hammering so hard I could hear it. I shouted that I wanted to leave. The manager finally came over with a fake polite smile. He asked if everything was okay. I told him clearly it wasn't, and I wanted to leave. He nodded and asked who I came with. I pointed at my date again. The manager scanned the room, eyebrows raised like he didn't see him, like I was pointing at nobody. Everyone else did the same thing. They looked through him, past him, right at me. There was this moment where the room felt wrong, like the walls leaned in closer, like the lights dimmed again. The manager said he couldn't let me wander around if I wasn't a customer. He asked if I needed help finding the entrance. His smile stretched wider, and I swear his teeth looked sharper than before. He pointed to the same door I tried earlier, the door that didn't open. I walked toward it anyway because I didn't know what else to do. Maybe something changed. Maybe this was all some misunderstanding. The handle didn't move. I kept shaking it harder and harder until tears filled my eyes. I said, "Please let me out. Please, I don't want to be here anymore." I turned around. My date wasn't at the table. He was right behind me. Too close. He whispered that I shouldn't try to eat before dessert. He said the restaurant wasn't finished with me yet. He said I hadn't given them a reason to let me go. I jerked away from him and banged the door one more time. The manager sighed loudly behind me and told the waiter to escort me back to my seat before I disrupted the other guests any further. But the waiter didn't come toward me. The waiter came toward him. The staff grabbed his arms like they were restraining a problem customer. He smiled calmly while they held him back. He kept his eyes locked on mine the whole time. He whispered that he tried. He whispered that they chose me instead. When the waiter looked at me again, he tilted his head and said he still didn't know who I was or how I got inside. I backed up into the door again, shaking so bad I thought I'd collapse. The manager sighed like he was tired of dealing with me and told the staff to take care of it. The lights flickered for the last time. Then everything went black. I don't remember how I got outside. I don't remember running. I don't remember anything between darkness and waking up on a bench across the street with the sun coming up. The restaurant looked closed. No sign of life. No sign of anyone inside, like the whole night never existed. I checked my phone. No photos of the date. No messages from him. Our entire chat history on the app. Gone. Even the name disappeared like he never matched with me at all. But every door in my house feels suspicious now. I double-check every window even though I know there weren't any. I keep thinking about him saying they chose me. And every night since. I swear the air outside my bedroom feels like it's waiting for dessert. Most first dates end with a hug, maybe a kiss if you're lucky. Mine ended with me running barefoot down a dark street, too scared to even look back. And the worst part is it all started so normal. Cute even. She was the type of girl you swipe right on without thinking. Bright smile, pink cookie in half her photos, hair always in a messy ponytail like she didn't even have to try. When she suggested we hang at her place after grabbing bubble tea, it didn't sound weird. She said she collected cool stuff and wanted to show me her hobby. I figured it was anime figures or posters or maybe crystals. Something basic, nothing insane. Her flat wasn't far from the cafe. Small building, only like 4 apartments. Her door had a smiley face sticker on it. That should have been my hint. People who try that hard to look harmless are always the ones you need to worry about. She unlocked the door and told me to kick my shoes off. Inside looked like a normal flat. Couch, TV, a couple cute pillows, snacks on the counter. Everything cozy. She even offered me a soda while she checked something in the back hallway. I sat down and texted my friend that things were going good. That's when I heard the sound. A slow driving scrape against the floor. Not loud. Just enough to make me look up. I thought maybe she moved a box or something. Then I saw her head peek from the hallway, and she smiled like a little kid hiding candy. She asked if I was ready to see her collection. I told her yes, sure, expecting something harmless. She skipped down the hall like she'd been waiting all day to show someone. She stopped by a door that had 3 locks on it. Not 1 or 2. 3. All different. She took out a ring of keys that looked like it belonged to a janitor of a prison instead of a girl in a bubble tea hoodie. As she unlocked the door, she told me most guys don't appreciate her poppy. She said they don't understand her passion. She said she hoped I wasn't like them. Her voice dropped a little when she said that part. She swung the door open, and everything inside me went cold. The room wasn't big, but it felt crowded. The walls were lined with glass display cases, the kind you see in museum gift shops. Inside each one, standing perfectly still, were dolls. Not tiny Barbie dolls. Life-sized. Human-sized. Their arms stiff at their sides. Their clothes neat and clean like someone ironed every wrinkle. Their skin was too smooth. Too pale. Their eyes weren't plastic. Their hair wasn't fake. Their teeth were real. I don't mean realistic. I mean real. Real human teeth. Slight yellow tints, chips on the sides, small imperfections that plastic can't copy. And the hair too. Strands tangled at the ends like hair that's been cut off and glued on. My stomach twisted, and I stepped back without meaning to. She clapped her hands excitedly and rushed to one of the cases. She wiped the glass lovingly and asked which one I liked best. I didn't answer. I kept staring at the way every doll's eyes seemed just a little too wet, like they'd been crying before I walked in. I forced a laugh and told her they looked interesting. She shook her head playfully and said I didn't have to pretend. She said she could tell I was amazed. Then she opened one of the cases. The doll inside leaned slightly forward. Not on its own, I told myself. Probably uneven floor. Probably. She stroked the doll's cheek with her hand and whispered that this one was her favorite. It used to belong to a guy who broke her heart. She laughed after saying that like it was a hilarious inside joke. I asked where she got them. My voice was shaking, but I tried to hide it. She said it's hard to find the right materials. When she meets someone special, she just knows. She leaned in closer to the doll's ear like she was telling a secret. Then she looked at me and said she really hoped I'd be special too. I stepped back and told her I needed the toilet. She nodded happily and pointed to a door behind me. She didn't suspect a thing. I walked quickly, shut the bathroom door, and locked it. I stared at myself in the mirror, breathing like someone who just finished a marathon. My brain raced for any plan, any excuse, anything to get out. Then I froze. There was a toothbrush cup by the sink. Inside were several teeth at the bottom. Not toothbrushes, just teeth. Some still had tiny roots attached. I covered my mouth with my hand to stop the scream. Then I heard a soft tap on the door. She asked if I was okay. I said yeah, just washing my hands. She hummed a tune while waiting outside. A soft, childish tune that sounded like a song you play in a baby mobile. I unlocked the window and tried to force it open. It was small, but maybe I could squeeze through. It only opened halfway before getting stuck. Dry paint sealing the edges. I pushed harder, but the paint didn't crack. The humming got louder. I forced myself to unlock the bathroom door and stepped out with a smile. I thanked her for showing me her collection, said it was super cool, but I had to get home. Early morning and all that. She pouted like a little kid denied dessert. She walked toward the locked room door again and touched one of the dolls affectionately. Then she turned back to me, eyes pointed straight through mine. She asked if I could come closer for a second. I said I really needed to go. She smiled slowly, too slowly. She said she understood. Then she told me to sit on the couch. Not asked. Told. The couch was between me and the front door. If I sat down, I'd be trapped. I said I'd rather get going. Her smile twitched like something behind it cracked. She stepped closer and whispered that the dolls get lonely if she leaves too quickly. She said they'd like to get to know people she brings home. She said they don't enjoy saying goodbye until they've taken a little part of someone to remember them. I didn't let her finish the sentence. I ran. I sprinted past the couch, yanked the front door handle, and thank God it opened. I flew down the stairs barefoot, shoes forgotten near her sofa. I didn't look back, but I heard her footsteps pounding after me, her voice calling my name like she was scolding a pet that ran off. I hit the street and kept running until I was at a main road with headlights and bus stops and strangers who felt like the safest thing on earth. I'd never saw her again. Her profile vanished before I could even report it. But sometimes I dream of that room. The dolls lined up inside their glass cases. The way their eyes followed me as I left. And every time I wake up, I swear I feel hair tangled between my fingers. And one molar missing from the back of my mouth. I always thought those horror stories about first dates going wrong were exaggerated. Something people wrote online for attention. I never thought I'd be the one telling one. But here I am, scared to look over my shoulder even while typing this, because now I know something can follow you home even if you swear nobody was there. It started like any other date. We matched a couple days before. Profile looked normal. Cute smile. Putty pictures. Nothing creepy. We agreed to meet at this quiet dessert cafe near the river. When I walked in, he was already there, sitting with a hot chocolate and tapping the table like he was impatient. He stood up as soon as he saw me, almost knocking his chair over. He said I looked better in person. That part was sweet. Then I noticed he kept glancing behind me like he was scared of something. I thought maybe he was shy or distracted or spotted someone he knew. We ordered waffles and chilled. It was going fine, but every few minutes, his eyes shot past my shoulder and widened, like someone was creeping up behind me. I asked if something was wrong, and he went all stiff. He said I shouldn't look. He said it would annoy them. I laughed it off. Thought maybe he was trying to be funny. Whatever, I turned around anyway. Nothing there. Just a wall and some dim fairy lights. When I turned back, he looked annoyed. He whispered that I shouldn't ignore him when he tells me not to do something. I told him to relax. He scared me a bit. He rubbed his hands on his jeans, breathing heavy, and wouldn't stop glancing over my shoulder again. Then the worst part, he leaned forward like he was listening to something. His face went pale, and he said they were getting angry. My stomach dropped, not because I believed him, but because the way he said it sounded like he was dead serious. Not a joke, not a prank, dead serious. I tried changing the topic to normal stuff. Music, pets, school, but he barely replied. He just stared behind me and started scooting closer around the table, like he needed to be right next to me for protection. He whispered that they're telling me I don't belong here, that I shouldn't be acting like I can just ignore them. I tried turning again because everything in me said I needed to see, but he grabbed my wrist so fast the spoon on the table rattled. He said they hate when I look. His voice sounded like he wasn't even fully talking to me, like half the conversation was happening in his head. I pulled my wrist away and stood up. I said I was going to the toilet real quick. He grabbed my sleeve this time harder. He said he needed to walk me. He said I couldn't be alone with them. I yanked away and headed toward the back of the cafe. The toilet door had one of those metal push locks. I shut it and instantly leaned down it, breathing heavy. I opened my phone to text my friend, but the signal in there was trash. Only one bar flashing. I splashed water on my face and told myself he was just weird, just anxious. Maybe on something. I planned to leave through the front, say thanks but no thanks, go home and then forget everything. But when I stepped out, he was right there in the hallway. He had moved silently. I didn't hear footsteps. He was inches from my face. His eyes weren't looking at me. They were looking at whatever he thought was behind me. He whispered that they're asking for something. He said they want a sign that I'm not planning to leave. I stepped sideways, back toward the main room. The cashier glanced at me, but didn't seem alarmed, like nothing looked wrong. Maybe it was all in my head. Maybe he was harmless. He reached for my arm again. I backed away and said I really had to go. He stood between me and the door. He said walking out without their blessing would make them furious. He said I wouldn't make it home. Everyone around us kept eating, like nobody noticed how terrified I was getting. I forced a smile and said, fine, let's just finish the night, okay? He nodded quickly, relieved. We sat back down. He was closer this time, practically shoulder to shoulder, and I swear I felt a cold breath on the back of my neck even though nobody was behind me. I tried to finish my drink, but he just kept whispering that they're upset and don't respect them. He said if I keep pretending they're not real, they'll do something bad. He kept leaning in, face inches from mine, sniffing like he was expecting someone else's breath too. I couldn't take it anymore. I stood up again. He stood up too. He said they're warning him I'm about to disappoint them. He reached toward my back like he wanted to push me into something behind me that I still refused to look at. I walked fast toward the exit. He followed, voice raising, saying I was making everything worse. He sounded like he was about to cry. I told the cashier thank you and just pushed through the door without paying. I didn't care anymore. I needed out. The second I stepped outside, I turned around and locked eyes with him through the glass. His face was twisted in terror. He put his hands against the door and whispered something, lips trembling. The cafe window lights flickered for just a second. I left. I didn't run until I got halfway down the block. Then I sprinted, turned corners without thinking, didn't even breathe properly until I hit the main road filled with cars and strangers. I blocked him the second I stopped running. I sat on a bench under a street lamp and typed out everything that happened to my friend. I kept checking behind me, but nobody was there. Just normal sounds of traffic. People chatting. Nothing weird. I told myself he was just messed up. Maybe delusional. Maybe lonely. Anything but supernatural. Then my phone buzzed. New notification. Locked contact attempted to send a message. It previewed the first few words. You left too early, they're still behind. I deleted it without opening the full message. I went home, locked my door, double-checked my windows, put my phone under my pillow like that could protect me. But I can't sleep. Because now, I keep feeling something close to my neck, like a cold breath, like someone standing too close without touching. And sometimes, when I turn my head, I swear I see a shadow shrinking back before I can catch it. Maybe he wasn't lying. Maybe they're angry.